Internet money.
Where is your internet money? Is my pocket here. Your
Internet
money,
money.
my pocket.
Internet money go poof.
What
No
is
poof,
going on?
my
Good
pocket.
morning, everyone.
This is the podcast you wanted. This is what you want. The unrehearsed version.
I'm trying to do the introduction. Maybe I'll ask Costin to do the intro. We're up to episode 59. Costin is back home in Bucharest. Juanito is in his home office in Washington, D.C. We are a little unprepared this week. I've had a tough week.
A little unprepared.
I'm behind on deadlines with things. Mike broke my glasses. I'm not feeling too well. I'm like on loaner glasses here. So
need your
we're gonna
Vyvanse,
trudge
bro.
through. How are you guys doing? How are you, Costin?
Yeah, I'm not far from you, my friend. I need new glasses. For sure, I need some new glasses.
Here?
I don't know. And what else? No, like school starts on Monday. Then I have like 5 dentist appointments next week, and I canceled one for today so we can record the podcast. So there you go. Honestly, I didn't really want to go.
For the folks listening, for the folks watching the podcast on YouTube, I noticed the audience is growing there. Remember to like and subscribe, and set notifications. Apparently, it's good for the algorithm, gets new things. Juanito, how are you? Yesterday, we announced LABScon speakers late last night.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're excited and amped up, filled with a little bit of anxiety. How are things?
I think that's a pretty succinct description. I'm good. I'm actually letting myself get excited. I mean, look, guys, like the amount of work that goes into this conference, it's hard to look at the con being less than a month away and not get filled with an immense amount of dread and anxiety about all the shit we need to get done from now until then. But I am like looking at the agenda is when I get excited. Like when you actually see that put together, that list of speakers, it's fucking phenomenal. And I don't want to gloat, but like I feel there's something very enjoyable about releasing the agenda when the conference is sold out. Like you
don't have a pressure to go sell tickets. There's no marketing needed.
You're not marketing it. You're just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like this is gonna be cool. That's gonna be cool. And like,
and it's really sold out. Like if Costin wants to buy a ticket tomorrow, I mean, you'll probably find one for him. But
we'll share a room.
As a program committee member, maybe.
There you go.
Can sleep on the couch. I think we're done. We're like fully booked up. There's a few surprises in there. There's a few there's some amazing looking talks, secret keynotes, all kinds of shit. I will be doing our thing there. So
all right, on opening night, just a little bit of house cleaning. We will do a live 3-Body Problem podcast.
We're becoming a traveling band, bro. Like,
dude, I saw the backdrop being printed. I saw the tablecloth being printed with the LABScon and the 3-Body Problem logo. It's starting to get real, making me nervous. Costin, let's switch on and get to the news quickly. We might do a short episode since we're all so unprepared and not feeling too well this week.
Wow.
What
so
you
said
last episode he says 4-hour episode. Now we're like, maybe like a quick one.
I just like everyone I listen to who provide me with some quiet feedback in the background that says, hey, I'm a listener, what's going on? To a man. Can we get 3-4-hour episodes? I don't know what is wrong with these people. They're crazy.
And we were fighting about this shit. What is the most watched episode? Most listened to episode?
It was the first 3-hour episode that we did.
That's right.
Really? I'm just trying to save people from themselves.
3 hours.
Yeah, the episode with Hamid
can only be better. Yeah.
Was it because
the episode
of
with Hamid was the first time we went to 3 hours. It was in the middle of this. It was right at the beginning of the Israel-Iran thing. So that actually did very well, 3 hours. I'm just trying to save people from themselves. Let's get to the news. iOS 18.6.2 dropped this week. Apple shipped, looks like an out of band emergency update. Just one vulnerability in there, CVE 2025-43300. And Apple included the usual language. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been exploited in an extremely sophisticated attack against specific targeted individuals. That language has come to mean what to us, Costin?
It means that this is probably massively exploited in the wild. There are like hundreds, if not thousands of victims. But the good news is that no one has a security product on their phone, so nobody really realizes or knows that
No
they
one
are
has to
hit or
know.
infected. So as a result,
If you
there's
don't
like no
know, does it
problem.
really happen?
It's
If there's
fine.
no ransomware, well, if you don't know, it can hurt you, right? So like TLDR, there's a
TLDR.
lot of activity. This is just a small fraction, which is very big by itself, although being a small fraction of the big thing. And I think there's a lot of victims which probably may get some kind of notification soon. So I'm
Kosin,
waiting.
you
I'm
just
waiting for the
nailed it.
notification.
Bro, you nailed it. You know where we fucked up? We have been letting this all pass by with no effects, and like, of course no one's going to notice if there's no security product. We need to encourage ransomware groups and
Stop it.
cryptocurrency stealing people to get on iOS like exploitation. Maybe
Ooh.
when we find an iOS exploit, we hand it over
So you
to
still
some of
think
these ransomware
Apple is
groups.
up to shenanigans?
Oh, I think the whole thing is shenanigans. It's not even Apple. Apple's just playing their normal game, but Kosin just nailed it inadvertently in saying like, well, there's no security product, so people are not aware, and kind of like if you're not aware, then it can't hurt you, which really just means like you can't immediately determine the damage that comes from this information, right? Let's say let's guess and fudge history here, right? If Jamal Khashoggi was lured in and tracked and whatever, and eventually dismembered on the basis of information like on his phone, we don't, there was clearly some damage, and this person felt the consequences very graphically, but we'll never know. The only reason we find out about a bunch of other shit is like, well, yeah, there was no security product on the box, but that person just lost $300,000 in crypto, or this company is getting ransomed and they're locked away. All of a sudden we realize the security vulnerability and realize the problem, the person's there. So yeah, I'm now starting to, this is a bit kooky, but maybe we should just hand these iOS exploits over to some ransomware gangs, and like we'll suddenly find out the true spread of these infections.
Well,
Apple's official position is that this is like, it's very small, very subset. The target base is very, very tiny. The inference is that it's not as widespread. So the larger group of us should not worry about it. Costin, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to say that let's not forget that there are cyber criminal groups out there like Romcom that have consistently deployed 0 days in the past year. I think Romcom was spotted using 3 days in the last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Not iOS though.
Not iOS though, but nevertheless, I mean, what's the difference between iOS and others? iOS is more expensive. So it's a matter of having the resources and access to the tools that allow you to weaponize that particular 0 day. So yeah, sure, we are talking about what was it in the latest price charts, $20 million for the full chain with persistence. But honestly, you don't really need persistence for this kind of jobs. Now, I was looking a bit into this ImageIO vulnerability, trying to understand, can it be related to one of these actors that keep appearing, like is it graphite?
Is there a pattern you've seen?
Not
this kind of
not yet.
ImageIO
I mean,
memory corruption.
What does it mean? Like ImageIO is the framework that Apple uses to decode pretty much all image formats on the phone, and that includes things like PDFs. So the potential for exploitation is huge. There was a very interesting exploit back, I think in 2016, which also targeted ImageIO with the TIFF file, because the TIFF format is insanely complicated. So the more complicated the file format, an image file format, the more chances to have vulnerabilities that can be exploited.
Crashes and stuff. Yeah.
Truth be told, if you ask me, the biggest issue of all is PDF files with things inside, like custom fonts, HTML scripts, image formats. So this combination, I think, is probably the most dangerous of all. And I assume here that obviously an image file format is involved. What it was, Apple doesn't say. They also don't say exactly which branch in the code they fixed, so people can't very easily spot and identify how to exploit it. But if I were to guess, I think it's one of the more complex image formats like TIFF or one of those. And keep in mind that if it's in this particular module, what do you need for that? Well, if somebody sends you an image like that over pretty much iMessage or kind of any kind of communication protocol or medium or messenger for the iPhone, simply seeing that image will result in memory corruption, code execution in the end. If I remember correctly, the last interesting exploitation chain that we discussed involved WhatsApp groups and PDF files. So in order to get the system to load that PDF automatically, it involves some kind of a magic of being added to a group and sending that PDF file to a group. So like in all cases, it's probably not just something simple, but a complex chain that involves multiple modules and conditions that gets it executed with the zero click. So I
So the
I
fact
don't
that they
think
only
we'll
patch
have.
one vulnerability doesn't discount that that there's a chain at play.
I guess, yeah. Well, if I were Apple and I was presented with, let's say, the so-called full chain with persistence, the first thing I want to patch is the initial access vector, like whatever gets code execution on the device. Then I'll patch the other modules that allow me to get kernel mode level access, escalation of privilege, persistence, breaking the sandbox, all those kind of things. I'll fix them later. But the first one, which is probably the most urgent, would be that there is, as far as I have seen, there's no credit in this security bulletin.
There is Apple.
There is Apple, yeah, but
It says
Apple
CVE
credits
2025
Apple.
photo.
We got
Yeah,
one.
So what does
we
it
got
mean?
one.
What does it mean? Like Apple credits Apple.
Well, usually they'll say anonymous if it wasn't reported, and they'll credit tag, Project Zero Google, or Citizen Lab in these things typically.
Well, I'll
They
just
found
say
one themselves, guys. It's okay. They
They're
figured it
allowed to
out.
find one themselves.
They tripped on one.
Is that nowadays, like almost every month, there's another one of these, some bug that may have been massively exploited in the wild against very targeted individuals that you shouldn't be worried about, but almost every single month. Like whenever we see one of these, we're like, another one. But it's like every month, man. Every month there's another one of these. Is it like the moment that we need to start worrying when every month there's a new chain like this in the wild? No matter like targeted individuals. What does it mean? Maybe you are the target. Like who says you are not the target?
Well, you're not a Uyghur, right? You're not. Apple
I'm
doesn't
glad
give
you
a
flagged
shit about
Uyghur.
you.
Can I ask? I want to ask you a direct question as it relates to the Uyghur thing.
Yeah.
Whenever we see these things, we go meh first, and then we automatically go NSO, Kandiru, commercial spyware, blah 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 blah. We rarely go to nation state doing mass surveillance, the type of things we've seen iOS ODE involved in the past with allegedly Chinese APT tracking Uyghurs and so on. Juan, you're consistently on this show flagging that as one of the few voices flagging that. When you read this here again, where does your mind go automatically thinking, I get a feel for who's behind this?
So I think there's a good reason that we keep thinking about these PSOAs or the NSOs, paragons, and so on. But I think it's a very telling reason, which is that is where nation state is largely operating, and as in they're doing so through these mercenaries. I think that's a really telling fact about the situation. Like for example, when we had we read the story about Hamid talking about how like there had been targeting of Iranians right before or during the Israeli-Iran conflict recently, and it was iOS stuff, and there had been notifications. We stopped, and I said, well, this is either really interesting for one of two reasons. It's either Apple is issuing notifications for nation state activity, which before they'd found this kind of like weird caveat where they were just kind of essentially saying like you got hit by a mercenary group, which was interesting because you're like, does that mean you're only tracking mercenary groups? Does that mean you actually know when it's a mercenary versus a nation state? Like, what exactly is this signaling? So when that happened, it was like, okay, either Apple is tracking and notifying people of nation state attacks, which would be interesting, or Israel, the Israeli government is relying on a commercial vendor for wartime exploitation,
But
which
that's
is
been publicly
also
reported as well.
no, but that's also very interesting because it says something about the state of iOS exploitation when one of the most capable nations on earth with like the deepest bench, one of the deepest benches of like talent to develop this shit is having to rely on a commercial vendor for a wartime activity. That's telling me that like even at some of the like most prized vaults of whatever tooling you might have, at least in that moment, you deemed it more appropriate to leverage a commercial entity. And I think that that's not about operations in general. I don't think it's about cyber ops in general. I think that's about iOS in particular. And that's a discussion that we haven't, I don't think we've given it proper attention, right? Like when NSO got sanctioned, I think anybody would have looked at that and been like, well, that's the end of NSO, right? Like, and that's not to say that's the end of their business. That's the end of that market. That's the end of that product. But what would they have done? What any other company tried to do? You fold the brand immediately. You go, oh, don't worry about it. Boom, company's closed. And then the next day it's like NSO plus one just shows up in Cyprus or whatever. But with NSO, we had a very long death, including the sanctions, including public reporting, including,
They never died though.
no, and Shalev Julio like coming out and like having public discussions, like all those things. What did we learn during the hacking team times and the Finfisher times? Any attention to this market, any revelation of customers and like how these things operated was like an immediate red flag that meant that company was like circling the drain. But with the iOS ones, no. And I think that was very, very telling about the state of this exploitation, at least the perception of the ROI of looking for these full chains that like that it's not just like the 2-bit governments who scrounge together $10 million in order to like, you know, go after their political enemies that have decided that this is, you know, that's about as much as they're willing to spend on this thing. It's even the big players that are having to rely on these commercial vendors. And we've talked about it. The big players do not like having to use anybody who's going to know who their targets are, who's going to know their selectors. So like, I think in that sense, Apple has managed something really impressive in that their security, you know, their hardware and their security engineering and like blended approach of like you can, you know, you do this like really cool magic on the hardware side coupled with the software side, and then you don't do any real monitoring, you don't do any real threat intel, but you know the platform itself is just such a hostile environment that like you just completely collapse the space of people that can actually operate in it. But I don't think we're properly understanding what that means for iOS exploitation.
Costin, usually they will say it was exploited against older devices. In some cases, they are patching the 18.6 branch because it's vulnerable. But usually Apple will say it was hit on older devices.
17.
We get a feeling that this chain, this chain is like modern, up to date, and this might be one of a new big thing.
Yeah, I think it's as modern as it gets, and probably was highly successful on the best, the most recent Apple devices here. One thing that I was thinking about was what is the impact of the Apple notifications for the attackers when we think about the target. So the moment, let's say a target, which it can be quite valid, I don't know, maybe terrorists, whatever. The moment they get the Apple notification, what is the impact for the attacker? So one thing they'll do immediately, they'll enable lockdown mode, right? All the people, every single case that I have personally seen and worked on with victims who got these notifications, everyone didn't have lockdown mode and everyone enabled lockdown mode after they got the notification. The other thing they did, they started using tools, all sorts of security tools to check their phones regularly, to not ignore patches. Some more advanced users started backing up their phones regularly, doing sysdiagnose, logging traffic. So I was thinking that probably the moment that Apple does a notification, the impact to the attacker is significant. The victim is alert. They trigger a new generation of defenses. So it may actually hurt the attackers a bit. The question is, in my opinion, if long term, Apple can send, let's say, enough notifications to raise awareness for enough victims to suddenly make it extremely difficult for the attackers to target anyone, because like a critical mass of potential victims are prepared and kind of awaiting these attacks. So in my mind, that's a question of the efficiency of these notifications.
Do we know if the notifications include like step-by-step mitigation guidance, turn on lockdown mode, do this, do that?
They do, and including asking
and
for help.
These things still pop through, which means one of two things. People, targets and some victim profiles are not paying attention to this. One, or two, they've already tested it against all those mitigations and they have bypasses for this, that. Which do you think it is?
I would say that these notifications are painful to the attackers. That's my personal feeling. And again, like I said, all the people I worked with, all the people who got the notifications, which, by the way, every month there's somebody new who either comes forward or I know about that they got these notifications from either Apple or from Meta, from WhatsApp. And the only thing which, in my opinion, is missing from the notifications is to say when they got hit. If they would just say, you were targeted on
a timestamp,
15th of November 2024. Because like everyone is, scrambling the darkness, trying to understand, oh, is it recent? Is it from last year? Is it from 2 years ago? Is it for this phone, or is it like from my previous phone because I just upgraded to a new phone? Like this, shooting in the dark, trying to understand what's going on is the most painful for the victims. Again, if Apple would add just a timestamp, say you were targeted in November of 2024, then it also allows us, by the way, to more easily search for suspicious activity in those phones on that day. And if I could ask for something more, if they could say who, like what was it? Was it, I don't know, Paragon Graphite? Was it Blue Ocean?
You can't even get an IOC. You're asking for attribution.
I didn't say Blue Ocean. Like nobody knows about that. So ignore what I said.
Right. Never mind.
Citrox, not Blue Ocean. or whatever. So if they could just say who it was, but I know they won't. That would be fantastic. But
I think your point here is like, what exactly is this supposed to be for?
Yeah.
Is it actually meant to help folks? I don't want to be so cynical that I just say that Apple doesn't give a shit about anybody and that they're not doing anything at all. I do want to evaluate what these things ultimately do, and if they hit their mark, right?
What are you talking about? The notifications?
Yeah. Let's because for example, the Google notifications are fucking useless, right? Cool. Thank you.
Apple is somehow more useful.
Well, I don't know.
I got one once on my
really?
Gmail. I got one to my Gmail once, and it was completely useless.
From Google?
I'm super jealous. Google,
got it
from
Google.
Tag, right?
From Google, sorry, and it was completely useless. I've never gotten an Apple.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my Apple one, but nobody cares about me.
You will not get.
You want to start investigating corruption in Mexico? You'll get that shit like that. No,
so we know who the target lists are.
Oh, that's absolutely. Come on, even the lawyers who were negotiating, what was it, the Coca-Cola, rights in Mexico were getting popped with, because like what you end up getting with the Mexican state is like every state is a customer of like
Mhm.
NSO or whatever, and they have a fuck ton of money. And some of those states are like straight up cartel controlled. Some of them are very corrupt, right? So you get
And
into
some of
these
them
like
have like legitimate use cases for tracking
sure,
certain types
sure,
of people.
sure. No, I mean, look, it's a country embroiled in a perennial cartel war and blah blah blah. I mean, you have legitimate reasons. Is it being used for legitimate stuff or not? I don't know, right? Like what you end up seeing. It's a big state. I cannot possibly begin to understand the complexities of trying to do that job in a place that penetrated, big, partially controlled by your enemies and so on. It's so I don't want to make it sound simple, but you
Mhm.
do there are easy ways to get an iOS notification if you really want it, right? Like you just got to wade into certain areas. Saudis, the UAE, you could just a couple of well-choiced insults, the right Twitter tone will get you one. But I think the bigger point I was trying to make about the notifications themselves is like when we have these conversations, right? You go, well, what like I said, let's assume that there's good people at Apple and that they want to do good things. We know some of them. I'm sure that there are good people that want to do good things. Is this hitting the mark? What exactly is it? What effect is
What
it having? Because what I would suggest is that even if you have good people trying to do good things, by the time a notification actually goes out, that is something that was vetted by 30,000 lawyers and all kinds of liability concerns and made up bullshit. And then people like went and finagled what the email was going to say. And they said, oh, don't use this word, use that one. And like, oh, these people don't need these little numbers with periods on them. Like they just remove the IPs, right? Like stuff like that. And some lawyer will argue that because the IP is hosted by like DigitalOcean, that they shouldn't mention that because that's going to be, that's a problem with an American company, right? Like bullshit like that happens. So my question is, by the time you get one of these, is it doing anything? I would argue that on the Apple side, insofar as they've provided us with lockdown mode, which is fucking a terrible experience, but it's a one-click solution, you still have more of a positive effect than you do with the Gmail ones. The Gmail ones are just completely fucking useless. It's zero information, zero anything. You've been targeted. We won't tell you anything. Good luck with your life. Take care. Activate 2FA. We don't know if your device is popped. We don't know if your Windows machine is popped. We don't know you're being targeted. They're probably targeting your other devices and shit. But like, fuck you. Good luck, right? There's nothing to do. Is lockdown mode enough? Like, Kosin, you're dealing with people directly who are getting these things. They'll turn it on. From a net life perspective, okay, now your phone is no longer hackable. Somebody was willing to spend a few $100,000 or risk $1 million exploit to pop your phone. Now your phone is secure. What happens to this person, right? Like, what context do you have? What mechanism, right? Hopefully the notification is followed by a call from Bill Marzak, right? Like, this.
Costin is becoming the new Bill Marzak. I have a question for you guys. Why haven't we seen an iOS malware removal tool from Apple directly that targets these things where they can kind of remotely do something? Is there a technical limitation to that? Why haven't we had this discussion before? Because malware removal tools on the Windows side is a normal thing. In the iOS world, where we continues to see this one every month, we're depending on notifications. In my opinion, like asking if a lockdown mode would have worked makes no sense because these guys would have already tested a bypass for that. In my opinion, at the high levels, guys have the bypasses for that. Do we know if there's a technical limitation to Apple remotely doing some malware removal on their side, on the iOS side?
I think maybe in their assessment, the amount of targeting they are seeing is not large enough to
Not enough?
justify the effort of developing something like that and running it. And two, most, if not all, the iOS malware that we have seen recently doesn't have persistence. So it's just transient in memory, which makes its detection a bit difficult, I would say. Not impossible, but definitely more difficult than just running some kind of a scanner of the file system for modification. So as like a a simple advice is like enable lockdown mode and reboot daily. And
Yeah, reboot your
this is
phone.
extremely powerful. And again, from what I said, every single case I worked on who was targeted got these notifications, did not have lockdown mode enabled, and after the notification, they enabled the lockdown. And I hear what Juan was saying, that it's painful, it's a terrible experience. Like for me, I try not to think of it like that. For me, there is only lockdown mode. That is the Apple experience. The Apple experience is the one with the lockdown mode enabled. There's nothing. There's no alternative. And
no blue text for you.
I don't use iMessage. iMessage is disabled. FaceTime is disabled.
There you
go. But like
we should do an entire episode with your iOS setup, by the way.
Yeah, just like, you could screen mirror it. Oh wait, you can't do that either.
No, it doesn't.
But here's my thing.
That's a fucking sticker, dude. Ryan, that is a fucking sticker. There is only lockdown mode. That is the iOS experience. That's true. Like
the iOS experience.
It's amazing how many things don't work at all. Like that even in Apple's own ecosystem, you can't get customer support. You can't. Nothing.
Lockdown mode is confirmation that Apple has failed at securing its ecosystem, or securing the ecosystem that it built up to sell this amazing platform. Because I asked about, like you mentioned, technical limitations to doing malware removal. Listen, I can hold two iPhones together like this without doing anything, and there's some magic colors that fly across and a photo cards. Like, Apple can do anything they want to do. Like they
of course.
No.
Of course.
Why Apple can do anything they want to do except AI, or fixing Siri, or a decent AirPods Max charging experience, or removing a touch, like not committing to a touch bar for 5 fucking years that nobody asked for.
We gotta get
or having a manageable Apple Vision Pro experience that includes developers, right? If you want them to actually build software for an entirely new platform, or having full keyboard support for the iPad on OS 26, which is supposed to turn it into a laptop, but keyboards don't work well because Apple doesn't understand keyboards.
And you still will go buy 10 more MacBooks in the next year.
They can also arbitrarily decide to fuck with the Bluetooth stack about 6 months ago and effectively break half of their own products, but like not fix it. Or they can change AirPods Pro notifications, or any AirPod notifications for text messages, so that they now tell you that they have a notification. They interrupt what you're doing to tell you that you have a notification, but that it's too long. Would you still like it to read the notification for you? Bitch, why did you interrupt me in the first place? I also don't know why Siri thinks that you ever intend to say thank you. I never say thank you to Siri. I am talking to other human beings. People speak to human beings. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with the Cupertino cadre, where they just cannot get customer experience anymore. But it's not looking pretty, guys. It is not looking nice for Cupertino right now. And I hope they figure it out, because they live in this fucking bizarre universe of their own making. But shit does not look pretty. Johnny Ive went over to fucking chat, to OpenAI. They're talking about entirely new computing paradigms. They were talking about MacBook Pros, these beautiful pieces of aluminum that we pay $10,000 for, everybody has. They talked about it like it was like an IBM PC. They talked about it like it was like an ancient era device. Apple better get its shit together.
Costin, he's on fire. We just heard a listing of his support tickets sent to Apple. Let me ask the question this way, Costin. I got a direct question for you, Costin. Is it completely out of left field and outlandish for me, Ryan, forgetting all the technical limitations and so on, to ask for an iOS malware removal tool for extremely sophisticated things against specific targets? Just for those high-end things where a very specific target has been hit and you're trying to warn them. Is it crazy for me to ask Apple to have a remote removal tool?
It's a reboot.
They don't need a remote removal tool. All they need is just to remotely reboot your phone. That's it.
Oh, they won't do that. The liability. Maybe it's plugged into a child's respirator somewhere.
I don't think it's plugged. No.
No, it fucking isn't. Of course it's not. But they won't reboot your phone. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even force an update on you. They wouldn't even force lockdown. Why don't they turn lockdown mode on for you? Why not?
Because the experience degrades, and then
Oh, the
you
It's
start
ruining
having
the iPhone.
you could be
monologues
getting
about Bluetooth and
yeah,
Siri.
when my emoji that I never asked for stops working, I'm gonna be way more pissed than knowing that like the crown prince of wherever the fuck has decided to listen to my conversations and enjoy my tasteful nudes. Like it's I
Turn
don't
on
Like,
lockdown mode and
there's
move on with your life.
look,
That's the parting words.
no,
I don't know,
what I
man.
wanted
Huawei
to
is
say.
making nicer phones than Apple right now, so maybe just go directly to the source.
Costin, what have we learned?
Huawei.
Finish it up.
Finish. Okay, look. I wonder if the whole situation of security products on iOS is unavoidable or not. I mean, with Mac, they kind of resisted this trend for many years. Like Macs don't get viruses. You know the story and the history. And at some point, you know, security products for Mac kind of became standard de facto. I mean, all big security vendors, they have solutions for Mac OS. So the question
What are
is if
those
it's
security vendors gonna do? Reboot your phone for you?
Well, but no, wait. But
no.
they fucked everybody, right? Like they eventually accepted the notion that there were going to be security products on
Mhm.
Mac OS, but
Exactly.
then they eventually neutered any of the system API use for those devices with the new entitlements and the new forms that like Mac OS works. So you actually have a bunch of security products that don't have any deeper visibility into like you're scrounging to make really cool shit happen, but in a hostile operating system that isn't giving you much access, which is kind of funny compared to iOS because like the integrity of macOS is not that great that it justifies neutering security products. With iOS, I get it. You're like, oh, we've managed to like develop the most secure platform on earth, and we will not degrade that for anybody, no matter what. And then I think the real ask is not a malware removal. Like, I wouldn't ask for a malware removal tool on iOS. What I want is a forensic collection tool on iOS. And it's what I've always said. I don't care if it's another little device. I don't care if I have to go to the store. I don't care if I need to like hold my social security number and like a newspaper and like shim like a knife into like the USB-C port at the bottom onto like 5 times and spin. I don't give a shit. But what you need is like something that says I have the ability to dump out whatever the hell's going on in memory in this device, dump out some of the file stuff in this device, even the logs and whatnot, and get specifics about some of the network stuff. Because my concern with the malware removal, which Apple has never had a problem removing malware from your machine, even when they haven't investigated shit. Kosin and I know that. We went to them however many years ago and said, hey guys, here, equation group backdoor, no one's seen. Sophacy, APT-28 backdoor, no one's seen. What would you like to do with these? And they turned around, like they didn't say shit. They turned around, they removed them from everywhere. They didn't collect anything. They didn't share anything back. They went there. We fixed it. We're like, what the fuck are you people doing? It was like the last time we ever showed up there with anything that wasn't like old and ready baked. But like, you don't need malware removal. What we need is to be able to look at an iOS device that we all know is infected and do one thing that is forensically sound. That means that we now have everything we need and we can leave that device right where it was, reboot it, not give a shit, and walk away knowing that like we have what we need to find the implants. We have what we need to figure out the entry vector. We have what we need to know the network, specifics that it was communicating with, and we can build a timeline. And honestly, like, how the fuck are people doing any kind of like forensic evidence collection for like court cases? Like, there's so much of this that just like Apple is stonewalling in a way that I think is entirely about managing perception and could care less about what's happening in the lives of the people that have to rely on their devices.
Costin, this is a good time to plug your countermeasures training because
yeah.
Juanito is saying there are no forensics to be had, and you're going to a conference teaching people how to do forensics on iOS. So, like, what is the real thing? By the way, countermeasures is happening in Canada. Is it in Ottawa? In Ottawa in November.
Beautiful city
the three of us will be there. The three of
Vitaly
us will be there in
Kamluk is
person.
also giving a training, a reversing training.
So, Costin,
just
we
shouting
do
to friends.
have the ability to do forensics. What is limiting to you?
So what the training is about is how to tell if, let's say, your phone, your iOS based device, has been targeted with something that shouldn't have been there. So we're gonna look at ways to find anomalies and identify processes that were not supposed to run on that device and things which
Extracting
are not
data from the device.
specific to that version of iOS. Now, because of the nature of iOS and how this ecosystem works, obviously you will never be able to do the full forensics image acquisition unless it's a vulnerable old system, iOS version plus hardware, or that you have one of these super expensive devices that allow you to dump them. So what we're going to do, at least in this training, we are focusing on things which are available on iOS and pretty much anyone can do, which in my opinion, they're still quite powerful. And again, just look at cases from Citizen Lab, which has been actually discovering a lot of very interesting exploits and malware with the existing capabilities that are built into iOS, which is sysdiagnose, iTunes backups, especially encrypted iTunes backups, tapping the traffic from an infected device and looking for anomalies, and then leveraging LibI mobile device and all its capabilities to collect things like syslog and look for anomalies. So if you put together all these capabilities, in my opinion, you can still find stuff. You can find probably most of the big cases, and it will be extremely difficult for an attacker to touch a device without leaving any trace. And every day almost we see cases when the attackers try to infect a device and remove all of their traces. So they're trying to get better and better, but still they forget about some kind of a feature which Apple just added. So there's like a new backup of the log of the processes consuming the battery. And this kind of, let's say, always there is a glimpse of light, if you want. But I can tell you that I've seen cases when, despite the fact we knew there was a notification from Apple, we had like a full dump of the device, basically zero anomalies, nothing that could justify that alert. So maybe the attack was unsuccessful. Maybe it was like that sophisticated that it wiped all traces without anything left behind. I don't know, but what we'll try to do in this training is to leverage all existing capabilities on iOS in order to find the needle in the haystack, to find if your device has been targeted and how to prepare your device, let's say, for a longer period of time. Because in my opinion, you don't have to wait to get that notification from Apple. You start preparing today. You start logging your internet traffic. You tunnel all your internet traffic through WireGuard to a server that you control, or your DNS requests, you log them. So the moment you get the notification, you're already prepared. You have the backups, you have the syslogs, you have the traffic, you have the DNS requests, the net flow. So all you have to do is just to look back, and hopefully Apple will say, hey, November. And then you say, all right, I go back to November. I have everything for November, and I'll find exactly how was I targeted. Was it an iMessage? Was it a PDF file in WhatsApp? Was it, I don't know, a PNG file through Signal? What was it? And you will be able to learn more and how to protect the next time. So you disable iMessage, or enable filtering unknown senders, enable lockdown mode, and so on.
Specialized tools I need to be able to do any of this?
There are some public tools. We'll use public tools, and I have developed a bunch of scripts myself, Python scripts that help you analyze the logs that Apple provides. So the reality, Apple gives you tons of information, but you need some kind of tools to put all that information in order, if you want, because there's just too much data that you need processing. And I've seen, by the way, some fantastic results from using AI to look at these logs. So during the training, we'll be using public tools, things like MVT, for instance, but also some of the private tools that I develop.
Fantastic. See, we got 44 minutes out of this one Apple iOS story that we just
Which
typically
literally
just go
is like
meh.
3 fucking paragraphs with no details whatsoever. Like literally the only detail in the whole page is just
ImageIO.
ImageIO. That's it. That's the only word.
True,
ImageIO is
but
like, oh, thank you.
Memory
But
corruption, ImageIO,
now
and
Oh.
yeah.
everyone goes back to all their syslogs, to all their crashes, and searches for any ImageIO crashes, correct?
There you
Also,
go.
Ryan,
they
let's go
happen
hang
a
out at
lot.
this training.
They
Let's
happen
just
a
go
lot.
hang out at this
I'm gonna
training. We'll make
sneak
like the
in.
lazy man's version of it, and like Kostin will teach like the resourceful genius version of setting this shit up, and then you and I will be in the back and be like, well, if you pay for these 3 services, like you get like 75% of this,
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
that's good enough. Like it will be fine.
Kostin, is there any value in setting up honeypots, iPhone honeypots around trying to attract some things?
I don't know if there is value, but I can tell you I have. Me personally, I
know
have
you have.
honeypots.
You have
We
to.
know you. We know you have.
What are
Motherfucker.
honeypots? Are basically older devices with old iOS versions, iMessage enable, lockdown disable, associated with your
Clicking on
account,
forum links.
and monitored like to the teeth, like monitored as much as someone can monitor those devices. But at least I don't know of any successful cases when someone hit one of these honeypot devices. It's a pain in the ass to run them, to be honest. It's difficult to have all this old hardware connected, 24/7 to power chargers and with profiles installed that enable debugging and extended logs that need to be updated every 3 days in some cases.
It's work for a lab.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work and zero success so far. But maybe I'm not interesting enough. I don't know. Or those who are interested in me, they use more sophisticated tools, like invisible tools.
I wonder if like you have the most monitored iPhone on the planet. And like this is like it sounds like hyperbole, but I'm curious, right? Because like the people, who else, right? People at Citizen Lab,
sure.
Maybe people at Apple, because I don't think Apple internally would take this quite as seriously. And like it's an embarrassment of riches shop, right? If they wanted Tim Cook to have a new iPhone every day, they could make that happen, right? So like I don't know that you have the same imperative to monitor and to pay attention and to do the real, threat intel side of it. So like I'd love to see the Andy Greenwald like wired profile of Kostin Ryu as like the man with the safest iPhone on earth, and it's like a bunch of fucking a Rube Goldberg contraption of like we're monitoring all the emanations around this fucking device, which like doesn't have iMessage, doesn't do FaceTime, doesn't do any of the shit you need it to do. But like this is
probably
the one.
unusable.
We'll know when it gets here, right? Like
the most secure iPhone on earth. It's just unusable.
Yeah,
I'm confident that right now there are people listening to the podcast and laughing their asses, knowing that
on
they
3
are
different
running
iPhones.
implants on my phone. Like with all these measures, all the monitoring, they're running their stuff on my phone, and Apple knows about it, but they can't notify me about it. And then
we had
an extra 3 listeners. We're not getting paid for these 3 extra listeners over here. I don't.
And speaking to those people, by the way, honestly,
shalom.
Why shalom? I don't care that much in the sense that I always, my philosophy is based on the following principle: sooner or later you will catch them. Like it's a matter of time, because if you save all these logs like forever, and you have a log of everything, sooner or later, you will catch that activity. It may not be today, it may not be next month, maybe not even next year, but in 5 years, in 10, in 15, in 20 years, you will still catch that activity. And eventually you will attribute it. And when you attribute the activity, you will find everything else it was, and you'll blow the whistle on that, and it'll make a lot of noise and it'll be painful. So the best course of action is not to target researchers. Do not target security researchers. Like that's the worst possible way to spend your money is and exploits is to target security researchers, at least in my opinion, because it fires back. It comes back and will hunt you for decades. And you know these people.
I don't think the
like
North Koreans
they're
care.
like a
We've
dog with
seen
a bone.
Lazarus target security researchers in the past. We've seen they don't really
Yeah,
care
those
about
don't
Depends
care.
on
anything.
the country.
Like what can
It depends on the.
we're gonna sanction them. Oh wait, they're sanctioned. Or we're gonna cut their access to Swift. Oh, they don't have access to Swift. What we're gonna do? We're gonna. Oh wait, they've been cut from everything, so they just don't
Turn
care.
on lockdown mode and go on with your life.
Yeah.
Turn
Quickly, I want
lockdown
to
mode,
pivot to
disable iMessage, disable FaceTime, reboot every day. Okay.
Put
So
it
I
in the
think-
fridge. Stop using it. Just get a Nokia 6600. Start, become join your local jihadi group.
I'll give you another.
Live a life devoted to Allah. All right. Like what exactly? Like we're just like you're just curtailing what it means for like to use this device.
Yeah, like again, for me, lockdown mode is the Apple experience. There's nothing else.
the United Kingdom will no longer force Apple to provide backdoor access to secure user data protected by this iCloud encryption service, according to U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. In episode 33, we discussed this. This UK government was doing this secret behind-the-scenes push for backdoor access to encrypted iCloud data. Apple responded by just not turning it on for new UK users. You just couldn't get it. We got news from the US government that they've been working in the background and the UK has agreed to drop this mandate for Apple to provide this backdoor. We happy about this? Is this a good outcome? We ready to celebrate?
I'll give you like the short reaction
The
from
European
my side,
perspective.
and
Yeah.
then Juan can give his rant style reaction for 30
Come
minutes.
on.
Well,
I'm
first of
keeping
all,
quiet. I've been told to protect Kostin. Everybody wants
Okay,
to hear
who
what
said that?
Kostin has to say, so I'm shutting my fucking mouth.
Oh God. Yeah, what I like here is how she says I've been working closely with President of the United States and the Vice President, and there were actually, I think the articles about this, they do mention that JD Vance actually take a personal interest in the topic. If you ask me, this is fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of people complaining about the administration, whatever, the focus, but I mean, this is a kind of things that you would expect your government to care about.
You
and to
want your
fight for.
government to care about.
I
Right?
would love if my government actually cared about these things, about privacy, about this terrible chat control, spyware legislation. I would love. So the fact that the U.S. government actually cares about that and they essentially worked with Apple, helped Apple to win against the UK government, and the UK government dropped their mandate to backdoor this encryption. I think it's fantastic. Now, the question is, of course, how was that negotiated? And was it more in the line of things, hey, guys, you don't really need that. Let us show you how to do it without the need to do that. Was it like more along those lines, or was it
Or tariff conversations. I thought it was like more along the lines of tariff conversations.
I would
We just
imagine.
did a deal with
Possible.
the UK and we say,
Sure.
listen, stop fucking with Apple. Like, leave our companies alone. There's another way to do this. This is not the way, blah, blah, blah. I feel like there was a commercial component to it, no?
It's quite possible, and if there was one, I would always try to frame it as some kind of a freedom protecting civil liberties angle. I would always do that. Obviously,
I mean, it kind of it is obviously. I think there's also an argument for it's like it's not just the argument of protecting an American company, but also like whenever you start talking about weakening encryption, eventually you get some sober-minded free market person who goes, hey, like the only reason we've been able to do e-commerce well is because people trust the encryption that like moves these things through the wires, which, it's an extension, it's an overextension of the argument, but like, I don't know, man, like this is an area where I think European virtue signaling about so many things feels so hollow when you actually see that, like, this makes it just look like the Europeans are just trigger happy with regulations and like more than happy to just impose things on companies that don't make sense or not good for anybody, and everybody's telling them not to, and they've been told not to 12 times, and they'll keep at it and at it and at it. That makes all the other bullshit about privacy, where you're finding Meta and you're finding Apple and you're finding Google. It's like that just looks like you're extracting money from American companies, even though you don't actually believe in any of the shit that you claim to care about. So,
Or
like,
you're creating the conditions for concessions in a future negotiation for tariff stuff. I mean, like I always view all of this within the prism of all that stuff happening. These things don't happen in a vacuum individually. They happen where you set up the conditions so you can get some things in a negotiation later. Maybe I'm just too
well,
conspiracy Ryan is just always at play.
if conspiracy Ryan is right, then that says something really interesting, because we're talking about the UK and the idea that the UK felt that it needed to arm itself, in its negotiations with the US government.
Every
It
country must have felt the same way. I mean, you were in a turmoil of like, we're just throwing numbers at you and then we're giving you some deadlines and we sent you to negotiations and so on. Like if you're not preparing for this, you're like,
I agree with you, and I hope to see. We care about the UK, and you hope to see them kind of well armed, because they're kind of like a one, you know, they're a one state block arguing for itself next to, thanks to its own doing. But also consider what you just said. There has been no more special diplomatic relationship in the history of humanity, as far as I can remember, or let's say in modern statecraft, than that between the US and the UK. And the
true.
idea that the UK would have needed or felt the need to hold an American company kind of hostage in the middle of this, just to be like, hey, yeah, we're working with you, we're making concessions, right? Like, I could see it. I don't think that that's necessarily what's happening here. I really don't. But like, I could see it. At the same time, what it would say about the state of the special relationship is noteworthy.
Costin?
I remember I didn't have ADP enabled before this story, but the moment the story dropped that the UK government is trying like to force Apple to disable advanced data protection
You turn
for
it
UK,
on.
I turned it on immediately. I mean, I couldn't turn it on because in my account there was still one of these honeypots running
Mhm.
on an iPhone 8, I think. So, but like I
Dude, there's
removed
no
that
point
honeypot.
to there's no point to running if ADP is what I think it is, like there is no point to running lockdown and all that shit if you're not turning that on. Like the fact that if it is what I think it is, which means that like I can go to iCloud services on a normal browser and still hit like
Hmm.
calendar, iMessage,
Sure.
mail, like backups.
Yeah,
Why would I waste any money whatsoever popping your phone? I would
absolutely.
just go, and that's how you got like the fappening and like all these different ways that like people were actually
Mm,
like early on getting information out of people's iPhones. It was you waited for them to back up, you already had their creds, you pulled the backup, and you pulled everything out of the backup. Um, ADP, I think, is to be honest with you, I think ADP does a lot more to secure the Apple eco or the iPhone ecosystem than lockdown mode itself, personally. Like once you're in lockdown mode, like you're in a panic room holding a gun, waiting for somebody to like try to get in, right? Like you're just like that's your last stand. But like most people are not in that position. Like most attackers are not going to go for that. They might even write it out whole cloth, right? Like if you're a mid-level government and you have enough of a cyber capability where you know what you're doing, you're not the best, you're not the richest, and you're trying to hit a normal target that's not worth calling the president and saying, sir, we need an extra $1.5 million to be able to spy on your ex-wife. Like you need to, you are going to look at the connective tissue of that person's life and say, okay, well, the iPhone's not, we're not going to hit that. There's a MacBook, there's a Windows machine, there's a bunch of other shit. And also, here's 4 cloud services they use. If we hit Gmail, they might get notified, but here's their iCloud account, and we can literally see the location of their devices and probably their family. We can see their mail if it's synced. We can get their backups. Like you almost feel stupid spending the money to hit the iOS device when you can hit the cloud services. And like we've been hearing rumors about companies like NSO having other product offerings that are cloud specific. And I've been saying this for a while. Just the economics of the problem. Why on earth would you bother trying to, do the iOS exploitation thing when all this other information is just, laying in these cloud services that either no one's protecting, or if they are, they're not letting victims know what's happening on them. So why not?
It's weird to me that I didn't hear any sort of uproar out of the UK. All the uproar came out of the US because it was like, oh, they were messing with encryption and they messed with Apple. I did not read a single blog post or article or anyone among the Brits who were just like, give me back my ADP.
Stiff upper lip, man. Stiff upper lip.
It could be that nobody has it enabled. But like I said, I did not have it enabled before this story. And I was thinking, can we get one of these governments to secretly try to force Apple to disable lockdown mode in their country? Like, I don't know, the Bulgarian government secretly tried to force Apple to disable lockdown mode in Bulgaria. And then everyone, there is something called lockdown mode. Let's enable it. And you get the opposite effect. So can we have some of that?
Does Apple control that? Like, do you need any kind of remote? Because like with ADP, you need it because obviously it's cloud services, and Apple makes it's like a categorical thing for all the devices connected to the account, right? Like it's what Kosin was saying. You have a honeypot on that thing. If you don't, you can't just turn it on. Like you can have devices like a MacBook with no lockdown, but you have an iPhone with lockdown, you have an iPad with no lockdown, and you know an iPod Touch with lockdown, whatever the fuck, right? But you can't do that with ADP. However, like, do you need anything from Apple to turn lockdown mode on? I don't think they can block you from doing it.
True, but they can maybe just disable
by normal mechanisms.
Just disable that option in iOS for Bulgarian users, or like for some specific category. The same, I don't know, like Fortinet has been doing that with their routers in conflict areas, like just to touch on old wounds. Like they can remotely disable your ability to do firmware updates or other things on your Fortinet routers.
I thought you meant Fortinet has lockdown mode. I was
like, wait, Fortinet has like a secure mode? Why did they disable it for every one of their customers?
It's the opposite.
Why? Yeah, exactly. Who does that?
Moving along quickly. A couple of weeks ago, episode 56, we had Dakota Carey on this show. We talked about Microsoft, China, and the MAPP leaks around the SharePoint thing. There was some speculation that something untoward happened, and the Chinese had access to Microsoft vulnerabilities ahead of time. MAPP is this active protections program where vulnerability information and mitigation information is shipped to security vendors ahead of time. In some cases, as Costin explained, 2 weeks, sometimes a month ahead in advance. Most of it like 2 or 3 days in advance. News out of Bloomberg this week is that Microsoft has cut off these Chinese companies from access to these advanced notifications about these vulnerabilities after they're investigating this leak. The change will limit access for program participants in countries where they're required to report vulnerabilities to their governments, which is, as we know, in China. Microsoft will no longer provide MAPP participants with proof of concept code demonstrating flaws. Instead, they will get a more general written description of the vulnerabilities, which it would send at the time as patches to fix the vulnerabilities are released. Kostian, when we discussed this 3 weeks ago with Dakota, you had a suggestion for Microsoft around triple patching, and then treating certain things in certain categories. Are you surprised that they actually just cut off all these Chinese vendors? It's like, let's just cut the wheel here? Or what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think it's a very good move and a very interesting move in the sense of not entirely cutting them, but limiting, creating categories of information which gets distributed differently based on trust levels.
Geography.
Not geography, but what? Because I hate the idea that they would be distributed by geography, and I think that Microsoft also didn't want to change these
Bloomberg harangued
regulations
them into this,
based on geography. So instead of saying China, they say countries where they're required to report vulnerabilities to their governments, which in essence, is it just China? It could be just China. Like, would be interesting to know if there's any other country. I know there's other countries where companies are required by the law to work with their governments if they get asked or requested, which could maybe fall in the same category. Because if you identify that this company is a member of MAPP, then you can just force them through government laws to give you everything they receive. So I think Microsoft avoided this language, which points to China very elegantly, but nevertheless it mainly points to China, and splitting the types of information in these categories, which again in my mind they would be the real code found in the wild is the most sensitive, and the one that the last time I said that we decided we're not going to share that anymore because it just gets leaked and it's terrible. It's a disaster. So instead, like that's the most sensitive categories. Let's say category 0. Category 1 is a generic proof of concept which triggers the vulnerability. And category 2 is a description which says there's a buffer overflow in this function in this module, which gets triggered by this file format having a like unsigned integer which is processed as a signed integer. And I think that's the third category. Whoa, holy shit! There's
You getting
storm
invaded
coming
by
here.
Russia, or
You want me to read it? There's a storm
I thought the
coming.
Russians were
Stop
coming.
that sound first.
Have you
is
ever
it?
got this? Like, have you ever got this in the States?
Yeah,
It's
flash flood warnings and
it's
shit.
an extreme alert that there's a storm coming. It's coming in 15 minutes. So if I
Apple
drop,
can
I
do all of
drop.
this on your iPhone, but they can't give you a malware removal tool.
And by the way, when this happens, like first the phone and then the watch and then the other phone, my wife's phone, Daria's phone, and everyone, like all my honeypots, first honeypot, second honeypot, third, fourth, fifth, seventh honeypot, they all start yelling like crazy. So it's usually like a symphony of alerts. But
What I've
Finish up
heard
the
is
thought.
it's amazing when you get them when you're in the skiff. That's
and
the
you
one
get them?
time you get everybody sweating balls. So like, who actually brought a phone into the skiff, right? Like, good
Costin,
time.
wouldn't
finish your
know. I've
thought.
never been in
You
a
were at
skiff.
this.
Yes, I said
I'm
this.
protecting Costin
Category
here.
0. Category 0 is the malware category or the exploit code from the wild. Category 1 is the POC. Category 2 is the general description. I think there's also maybe a chance for more categories, like for even less trustworthy participants. But it will be maybe, I say, less useful, which would turn MAPP into not a very useful program. So in the end, we have
This
to
is the
remember
point.
what MAPP is about. MAPP is about helping people. So to me, what would be more interesting and important, so here's another suggestion or advice from me, is if someone is not trustworthy, can you identify who it is? Yeah, but like you need to find them. First you need to catch them, right? And then you need to kick them out. So how do you catch them? You need to do some kind of watermarking, like you need to do like a blue dye operation. I think it's still feasible. I tell you a secret. We've done it in the past.
I know.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
Yeah. Sorry.
We've done this in the past in order to see who is leaking the information. So the same code, the same binary exploit, which went to 20 different parties, each single one had like a tiny bit changed. So we would know if it ever gets leaked, we would know who leaked it. I think that there's a chance and possibility that Microsoft could do the same. create kind of unique, and even tell them like, listen, this is unique to you. So if you leak it to whoever else, there's a very high chance that we'll know. So the moment that you do that, you immediately see a decrease
That
in the
doesn't stop real
desire to
leaking,
leak.
though.
You know, maybe not stop it, but decrease it. So again, the goal here is just to increase the quality of the program, to weed out the bad actors from the good actors, and help the good actors to protect their customers. I think that's what it is about.
Juanito, before you respond to that, and I know you're itching to respond to that, I want to throw a question to you, and you'll respond and then answer the question in the same frame.
Okay.
This has been cat and mouse for a long time. Microsoft has kicked out Chinese vendors. They've kicked out AV providers in the past for leaks. We know they kicked out Kaspersky and Positive over sanctions and so on. So this is like an ongoing cat and mouse game. Do you think this helps to fix leaks, or are we still going to have leaks moving forward? It continues to be a cat and mouse. So frame your thought into that.
I don't know that this in itself is gonna do it. So the reason I was objecting to Kostin on the blue die off and
Watermarking.
everything and watermarking, it's not that I don't think you should do it. I absolutely think they should do it. What I'm thinking through is not how do they do it or whether they do it. They have to do it. They should do it. But what do you do when you know? And I suspect that that's more of an accurate depiction of the situation that Microsoft is actually in. Microsoft is an intelligence collection behemoth. It has a metric fuck ton of information. It can tell a lot of things about what their users do, whether those users like it or not.
This decision does this decision to curtail Chinese companies tell you that they did an investigation and caught someone?
No. I think Microsoft is just responding to public pressure, and we just so happen to be at a time when they're feeling a little vulnerable and threatened by anything that will get them attention from the U.S. government, because they are under so much scrutiny right now because of the digital escorts thing and stuff like that, that they're paying attention to anything that that might bring them public attention. But I don't think they're responding to anything intelligence driven per se. I'm sure Microsoft has a keen awareness of who is doing what and in what way and how stuff is moving around. And what I imagine is happening is the usual argument that intelligence professionals make, and that this is one of my few objections to like hiring people straight out of the IC in the West. I'm all for it. I think the intelligence communities in the West have brilliant people, and those people deserve to get good jobs once they're done serving their countries. But if there's one problem with those folks is like they never really shake the culture. Like once they switch to the private sector, like you've been at NSA for 15 years or CIA for 15 years, and you just like, yeah, you're brilliant at a few things, and those are great. Those skills were honed in a certain context with the support of existing systems, with the support of a whole giant organization that's doing a fuck ton of things that you don't understand or you don't know about. And those skills are very like, they're very context dependent in a lot of ways. And what happens to a lot of people who leave the intelligence community to go to the private sector is that they don't actually make a concerted effort to shake that culture. They still think that they're dealing with classified materials and that they need to be, they treat private, like company private, quote unquote, information as if it's classified material. And they talk about, systems that you get internally as if those are sources and methods. And that's how you end up with, like, for example, like CrowdStrike's culture around their intel team is like ridiculous, right? Like they act like they like it's all the CIA, and we're like, cool guys. Anyways, like the rest of the industry is like working over here, and you guys can like do your shady shit, and it's fine. Like as a competitor, I'm like, yeah, let them sit it out. That's no problem by me. But when you look at some of these companies, like Microsoft, the objection you're gonna, that's such a fucking tangent. The objection you're gonna get is, we know this about these vendors. We know how this leaked. If we tell them every time it happens, if we tell them how it happened, if we tell them how we know, they're going to adapt, and the other ones are going to adapt, and they're going to do it in ways that we won't be able to tell. So it's a typical like sources and methods argument. Where I think they fucked up now with this blanket denial is if I was the Chinese and let's say I'm the MSS and I was really benefiting from those early exploits, like maybe we were using them regularly and people only caught us every once in a while, then what I would do is hack the other companies in MAPP and just go pay attention to that shit. And then no one's ever going to know where it came from. And either you cancel all of MAPP or like, we're good here. And that is where I see like the failure to have used a proper soft power perspective, which I think Dakota Carey actually made the argument at some point that like this was a good opportunity for the Chinese government to come in and say, hold up, like we're going to enforce this. Give us a minute. And they would go out and call out a few contractors and hang some MSS person from their thumbs and go, you're making the country look bad. Fuck off. We have plenty of exploits. This is not the way to do it. And that way, you would have gotten the Chinese to do a bit of self enforcement. So I'm not saying that that was an easy thing, but it's not something that, as far as we can tell, that they even tried. And the minute you blanket everybody off of it, then you turn it into yet another free for all. Like you've just basically made it cowboy land. It's like, yeah, okay,
Right.
go. Like we have zero responsibility now to this program. They're xenophobic. They told us to fuck off because we're Chinese. So you know what? Go to town, guys. It's like I don't know. This isn't a good solution. Yeah.
Costin, do we have any empathy for Chinese computer users who rely on this help? Or it's China, boogeyman, bad, let's move on, kick him out, let's move on.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is Chinese security products are not used only in China. They're also used outside of China, actually.
In
This
large
can
swaths of the world, right?
keep in mind that this can also include things like, I don't know, all sorts of connected fields. I don't know. It can be devices, it can be IoT hardware, it can be other things which happen to run these security solutions from the same vendor, and those vendors would still benefit, and their users would also benefit from having information about attacks and vulnerabilities and everything else that a map provides. So personally, I think it's again wrong to make it just about China, but I do understand that Microsoft needs to somehow separate this into categories. And again, the focus should be on finding and identifying the bad actors, at least in my opinion, no matter where they are from. So maybe historically, the vast majority of the bad actors were from China. But in the end, it shouldn't be about geography. It should be about finding those bad actors and trying to limit the amount of damage they can do. Because in the end, what is the damage? They leverage that information to develop offensive tools, to develop exploits and target users worldwide. So I think that is the most unfortunate outcome of that could have happened from MAPP is that those get leaked, weaponized, and used at massive scale.
Yeah, I
So
think this is why the Dakota point about like self-policing to protect your own interests was the way to go, rather than get to
yeah,
this point now where you have an entire population of end users who use Microsoft products who rely on this early information to get their things patched and fixed. I mean, there are normal human beings in China too who rely on this. So I don't know.
well,
Course.
so I think that's an important point though. I don't think they are feeling as much of the pain. And that's part of the problem here. Um, we've joked around a lot about like where is the band of like American ransomware crews that are stealing money from Chinese companies or Russian companies. And there's a lot of joke, like people just kind of like haha joke about it, but I'm like, honestly, guys, like there's a weird Boy Scout thing about like we just don't commit crimes and we don't condone crimes. And you're like, okay, but in this particular case, like I almost see it as a national security imperative or almost like a state of cybersecurity imperative where it's like the problem that we have is that there's a complete disproportionality in the problems that we deal with in the West and the problems that the Russians and the Chinese deal with. And in their case, it's a purposeful um, government measure. It's a thing that they are encouraging, right? Like, what's the safe harbor rules, or and they're well known in Russia. Like, when does anybody get the door kicked down in Russia? Well, when they hacked a Russian bank or a Russian company, or well, they pissed off the wrong person. But for the most part, the idea is what? Hack anyone that way. Don't fucking do anything that puts, that in any way makes us look bad inside of our own country. And from that point forward, you're good. Well, why is it that in the West we have made it our mission to just stop all cybercrime? Like, stop all cyber shadiness whatsoever from the people we have any purview over, to a point that's like ridiculous, right? Like, we talk about the CFAA. Every once in a while, we'll see some dumbass prosecutor in like Missouri or whatever decide to go after a journalist because they like looked at the source code of a website. And like, that's enough to like have broken the law and made a cyber attack and become a cyber criminal. But that's not, cyber is a fucking web that connects everybody. And that means we're all playing Boy Scout in this little island over here. Everybody else is attacking us all the fucking time and extracting billions of dollars worth of money. And then we are going, oh, don't you dare hit anybody back, because like you might break the frail balance of where we are. We're a rules following nation of whatever. It's like, guys, like at some point
We are though.
not
I mean,
really.
you're
Not really.
you're
Not
advocating for
anymore.
shaking up the order, and the order is
No,
working.
the order. What order? First of all, the order's not fucking work. Fuck you. I think you are like just riling me up. I think in this case you're just you're trying to rant
You
extracting.
want this free for all of like, let's go hacking. We should allow
No,
Americans to go do things. Is that
I
what I'm
would.
hearing, or am I not
Yeah,
hearing that?
yeah. Honestly, I do. Like, fuck it. I do. I want us to get honest with ourselves about the fact that we are not going to create a free for all. We are living in a free for all. And we're acting like we're not. And it's some kind. You remember back when like war was a bunch of like Europeans, like, just reloading while staring at each other in a line, and then they would just like shoot each other honorably, and there'd be
What
a
is he
dude like
talking about?
holding a fucking drum and a flag, like where it was like law. Like, they thought, the Brits thought Americans were fucking uncivilized because of our guerrilla warfare tactics, because we all didn't stand in a fucking row and just shoot each other directly. That's what's happening in cyber. But one side is standing there in a line, and the other side is just fucking sabotaging, burning, breaking, stealing, looting, everything.
So
And
we
we're
should
just
be like
sitting.
them.
I think that I would have loved to live in a world where we figured out a way to make everybody choose to live in a rule-based order. But since we haven't, I think we need to get honest about the fact that we're trying to negotiate about problems that are only affecting one side of the house. And of course, the other side is not going to relate. The Chinese are not relating about the issues with like rampant fraud against our like aging retiree population that is leaving people literally homeless and without any future. They're not dealing with their companies having to occasionally pay $50 million that they didn't plan on because some ransomware group shut their shit down.
Well,
And
because
like,
they didn't patch something for 5 years too.
well,
I mean,
but
like,
look, I agree that the victim has some responsibility, but even look at the Chinese firewall. Like, they have vulnerable systems back there. They control the internet in a way tighter way, and whenever something's coming down the pipe, they can just arbitrarily block for everyone. So like, you're in a situation where these sides are not feeling the same pressure. So when you look at the Chinese and you go, hey, China, don't you care about your users? They go, our users are fucking fine. Like, they're fine. There's no, Baidu is not going around going, oh, somebody
but that
just
doesn't mean
extorted
they're
us for
fine. Not because
$120 million. Like, so
I
they're
don't know.
fine.
Let me throw another story into the wrinkle here, since you talked about this. Is on February 13th, we got a press release out of U.S. Congressman Tim Burchett introducing Cartel Marque and Reprisal Reauthorization Act of 2025.
The spice.
We're talking
the
about
spice.
letters of marque here, and
spice.
it's along the same lines of what you were talking about. Are you a fan of this approach?
The spice must flow.
Wait a second. Back up and give the audience a little bit of a little short, quick history lesson on what this is and the context of what we're talking about.
I mean, I'm gonna fuck this up because I'm not good at history, but and I don't love.
Nobody's fact checking anything.
I don't like
so
pirates.
Just go.
I'm just not one of those kids that
Yarg.
likes pirates. Yarg, right? So the idea with letters of marque is from the whatever, like back in the day, Congress used to be able to issue these letters of marque that would basically say that they would basically enable privateers to loot and to essentially handle instances of piracy and like other enemies at sea.
Vigilante.
Yeah, sort of do vigilante work without being themselves categorized as pirates and plunderers and so on. And it was sort of a way of, this is pre-Bretton Woods, right? You don't have anybody enforcing free trade and like open seas. And there was a lot of piracy and it was an issue. It wasn't just like it's more than a Johnny Depp franchise. So that was an ancient mechanism that we had of enabling privateers to essentially break the law in order to help us sort of enforce some rules-based order at sea. And the notion of repurposing letters of marque for cyber has been an open discussion in some form or another, adjacent to the hackback discussion in policy circles for many, 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 many years.
Popped up recently within the context of Alexei Bolasel's statements about us being a little more forward-looking on the offensive side, just in the context of the conversation that's been happening.
Yeah, I won't speak to what Alexei or JD Work or anyone in particular is advocating because I can't speak for them. And honestly, I'm not familiar enough with exactly their views where I would want to put words in their mouth. So instead, what I'll say is there's been an expectation that this administration is going to take the gloves off when it comes to cyber operations. And it's something that we've discussed on this podcast a bunch of times. And frankly, even if we didn't talk about, even if we didn't have friends there, or even if we didn't have any perception or perspective on what the ideology around cyber is with this administration, even looking at how some of the investments have been going by big companies, big investment firms in the past 6 months or so, in particular, the purchase of Paragon to me was like a huge indicator of that
Paragon is one
changing.
of these spyware makers, right? That was bought by a U.S. private equity firm, right?
Exactly. And I thought that was a really interesting move, right? Because when you look at like Francisco Partners and their stake in NSO, that you don't look at that and go, oh, that was a resounding success. We should get into that business at great personal expense, right? Like that if anyone in cyber is aware of the existence of Francisco Partners is in the negative context of having owned some portion of this company that is associated with, human rights abuses, right? Like that is not a business that anybody else decides to go into for a few $100 million or more. So when that happened with another company that like on paper is basically like a clone of NSO from the same place with the, similar track record-ish, to me, that was really interesting because I don't see those venture funds as looking to just gamble away money on the possibility of whatever. I see them as places that know to meet the needs of the US government for great profit. And clearly, they saw an opportunity and they saw a need and they saw something meaningful coming with this administration. So I think there's been a fair amount of indicators that we've all been waiting for where we think something is going to come along that's going to loosen those restrictions that have been keeping cyber operations in the US. Like, look at how we're talking about it. Some of our friends in like more liberated countries will don't understand what the fuck we're talking about. And rightly so, because they don't need the permission of their government necessarily to do a whole lot of things in cyber that are just common sense stuff. But we do because there's some idiot FBI agent in a field office out here who's going to come knock my door down and say, "Oh, we fucking got him," because like I used a password, an email and password that was embedded in a piece of malware that's being used for exfiltration. And like that's breaking the fucking law in America. So like we're so overzealous that to then say, "Okay, cyber operations for anything law enforcement or government adjacent, even if you're doing it for good intent, may land you in prison and is sure as shit not a business model that you're willing to put hundreds of millions of dollars behind when you don't know if like you're going to be working for the government and people are going to love you, or you're going to go to jail 6 months later, or the minute a different administration walks in, they decide that they're going the same way they treated the cryptocurrency companies, right? Like, depending on who's in the house, you're either a financial darling or a criminal. Like, that's not a great investment. So we've been expecting this shit to, like, long, very, 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 very long story short, we've been expecting this to change on like the rules and laws and restrictions around private citizens and private companies engaging in some kind of cyber operations. This was one of the mechanisms that's been expected. So seeing it pop up was like a holy shit moment for a lot of people, even though this is but a wisp of smoke that has shown up in Congress and is not in any way the actual measure taking place.
Correct. And it's positioned here against going against cartel-linked organization or any other conspirator associated with a cartel and for other purposes. So, I mean, the idea that the thing we were asking for is like, if there's a bunch of Russian gangs breaking into our hospitals and ransoming devices that go beep beep and killing people, like, we just sit back and take that? At some point,
Right.
there has to be some sort of like,
So
I don't know.
I agree with you, and that's where the sentiment comes from. And this is where we can start to conflate a whole lot of things, which is letters of marque are a very particular thing. And then hackback is a much broader thing. And then law enforcement for cyber is another thing. And threat actor takedowns are another thing. And they all live in a space close enough to each other. They're all neighbors that in a way that like conversations tend to just easily swivel across those four distinct things and they all get lumped into the same. So I'd love to kind of, if we don't mind taking a little time on this one, like I'd love to break that up a little bit because we're talking about a lot of different things and lumping them in together in a way that is actually kind of self-defeating, or it doesn't really do what you want it to do, right? So let's think about this, right? Letters of marque are the idea that like we can enable privateers or private companies to do some kind of enforcement, like good faith enforcement, and we're not going to treat them as criminals, and we're also presumably we're not gonna well, I don't know what the loot equivalent is of like privateering in cyber, but you're also not going to look at their stolen gains in an unfavorable light. Okay, cool. Why does that matter here? Well, because in the US, if you're doing cyber operations, you need to have some kind of title authority. So usually it's being done almost exclusively by the government or the military. And you have some edge cases where people get specific authorizations for otherwise illegal actions that they might be able to do in a very narrow scope. But you're talking
software's
about
using implants.
that is do not. That is no. That's not a good example. That's not
No?
it. Because that's Sophos, a private company, deciding to change the functionality of Sophos's own product. That doesn't count. What you're talking about here is let's create a fictional scenario, right? Like we are Ryan's parents get scammed by some call center in India. We decide we're going to go we call the FBI. The FBI doesn't give a shit, or they're like, we don't have enough information to do anything about it. You're like, okay, well, they need their money back. So what do? Well, the three of us decide we're going to go like hack that call center, and we're going to take all the money they've stolen and we're going to transfer it away from them, or we're going to brick their machines. And like we're going to use the information we got to then hit up all of their victims and give those people back their money. I think by any stretch, like any definition, in
This is a
that
desirable activity, right?
that is it's a desirable activity. By any definition, I think that that is an unalloyed good that you've done. Anybody who's twisting themselves into a pretzel to say that like, oh, but you're talking about norms or some kind of Kantian categorical imperative, but I don't see where like the victims are in that kind of justice served and retribution. And it's not like we're keeping the money they stole. We want to make good and give it back to the people they stole it from. Sounds like a great situation. In the US, you broke the law. And the minute you start hitting up those victims and somebody hears about how you got the money back and whatnot, some aspiring special agent somewhere who is looking for a promotion is going to come knocking and tell you that you broke the law, that we broke the law, and that we are going to go to jail. And it's going to make for a great Wired article, which is going to be even better for the press release that puts him in his promotion.
So this fixes the law.
Well, no, because frankly, the law, nothing fixes the law other than changing the law. And the chances are that like when you change the law, you're going to create another problem. A. B. Look carefully at what we've defined here with this letters of marque. This is not the thing because this is not a law yet. But if you look at exactly what's been defined, there is no governance framework. It's also saying that the Congress is not giving those letters of marque, but it's authorizing the president to give those letters of marque. And those letters of marque are then given to somebody who's put like a deposit down. So in
Security bond.
In a way, it's kind of enabling a private sector category of actors that are presidentially appointed or approved, that have gotten some pre-clearance, some green flag to do God knows what.
Sounds like a good idea. Sounds like what you've been asking for.
It is the creation of a new stream of private sector income. I don't know that it's a good idea. I really don't like. There's a lot of complexities here that I'm deeply uncomfortable with, which is that what are you authorizing? What outcomes are you authorizing? What is the end of the line? What happens when you inevitably get some mediocre shop? Because it's not like they're going to go surveying the best possible talent and give them the greatest possible intel. And like now that it's legal, CIA is going to show up with a briefing and say, these are the exact people you need to hack in this and this way. That's not happening. So what happens when some enterprising consultant at Booz clicks 3 buttons and like wipes some machine that was being hosted on DigitalOcean or in Amazon AWS because they thought that that's where you got hacked from, and in reality that's that infrastructure was some random company's server that was being used to redirect whatever. And then you get this, I mean, technically you've broken the law, you fucked over an American company, you had good intentions, you're theoretically allowed to. Hopefully your security bond is high enough to cover the damages. But like what you are kind of saying is like a drunk driver can only be taken by another drunk driver. Like let's just kind of like let these people cook and see what happens. And that's not exactly what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is I would love to see a similar safe harbor declaration coming from the US. And I doubt that's ever going to happen. But like, if you want to enable the private sector to do soup to nuts cyber operations on behalf of the US government, then we should do that. And we should do it in a way that enables serious investment and oversight and outcomes, and that you're getting your money's worth. If you want to make the Chinese and the Russians feel the pain of cybercrime, then you should do that. You should go and enable not the private sector, but rather a general safe harbor understanding that all these criminals out here who are like getting caught doing carding and all that kind of low-level fraud and all that shit, you should be directing it at China, Russia, and all these other places. They have money too. Like, don't hack inside of the United States and like you can be profitable and do well. Okay, that's not a very American thing to say, but frankly, it's what everyone else is fucking doing. And also, frankly, like we can have letters of marque because we refuse to sign whatever the fuck declaration in Paris that said that those were illegal. So like we have clearly accepted that under certain circumstances, we don't really give a fuck what other people think is right and wrong. On principle, we're going to do what is necessary to protect the rule-based order and what's necessary for folks to abide by some notion of like free trade and enabling whatever. And like, look, I know I'm making a ludicrous argument. I'm just marveling at this weird Boy Scout morality that we have somehow imposed upon cyber offenses that mean that like our kids are hacking our good American kids are hacking good American companies to screw over good American people when they could be hacking Chinese companies and screwing over Chinese people. And like that's the kind of world we're in now. So why the fuck not let them do that? And then we can all come to the negotiating table and say, hey, China, you're fucking tired of our ransomware groups giving you a hard time. We're tired of your ransomware groups giving us a hard time. Let's figure out a way to do some common law enforcement. That's the way you do it. You can't come together to solve a problem that only I have.
Bastian, give me the retort. Have you read this bill? Have you read this proposed bill, this letters of marque thing? What from your perch in Europe and you see this, is this something that you roll your eyes at, or is this like you feel like there's some energy moving in this direction?
Oh, look, I thought this was the most interesting story of today. So I did spend some time trying to run a couple of scenarios, trying to understand.
But this guy preparing.
Only about this. The others, no. But I thought this was extremely interesting because it can be good, and at the same time, it can also be very bad. And I think the key element in this proposal is the security bond. That is the most important part of the whole proposal. So now I don't know enough.
Can I read the sentence?
Please.
Can I read the sentence quickly?
Yeah, let's do.
No letter of marque and reprisal shall be issued by the president without requiring the posting of a security bond in such amount as the president shall determine is sufficient to ensure that the letter is executed according to the terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. So that's there's a requirement, and this is just a proposed bill. We're not talking about a law here. This is just like Quan said, early smoke around the bill, around this security bond. Why did that stand out to you?
Well, not only that, but another thing which kind of made me thinking is, again, I don't know enough about the US system, but does it actually matter who is pushing these bills? Like in this particular case, who is the representative David Schweikert? Does it matter
Tim
if
Burchett,
it's someone, David?
Republican from Tennessee.
Okay. Does it matter who pushes these bills? Like, what do you? In your opinion,
Absolutely does.
It matters if it's like a very prominent senator.
That's why I'm telling you, like, this is not a thing where you should look at this and be like, oh my God, it's law, it's happened. It's like, no, this is an extremely unlikely thing. Under its
really,
current
you think it's extremely unlikely?
Yeah. In this form, this person introducing it with no co-sponsors, with no whatever, people who are much smarter and understand the DC system better, give this like a no chance of moving forward as it is, which is probably for the better, because this does not look, it's not that it doesn't look well thought out. It looks purposefully vague to a point of like, you can drive fucking a truck through the loopholes that you're leaving in this thing. You're saying, it's for crime and fraud and other purposes. It's for dealing with criminal enterprises, but nation states can be criminal enterprises too, wink, right? Like when we talk about crime, that includes dealing in passwords. It includes using code to damage another system. It includes like the things that it's a 4-page bill in like double spaced and like centered font. It's like a tiny amount of text, But essentially, what it describes is the president can ask people to put down some money, and then they can do whatever the fuck they want online, and it's gonna be cool, bro. And like the worst part is the putting down the money thing. Like the bond part is where it turns into a business. Like it's not gonna be that like Silas suddenly has a letter of marque, which is what we've always wanted, and then let Silas cook. It's gonna be, well, Booz Allen has been allowed to pay $50 million in deposit to now be part of like the offensive crew that does whatever it wants. And that means, you can go be a contractor for Booz and like hopefully hack ransomware operators and cartels, but like maybe just fuck around online.
Costin, finish up your preparation around this bond, because I know you put in some work on some certain circumstances and certain ideas.
Two things attracted my attention. One was it was pushed by this representative, and I was wondering if it matters who is pushing it. What are the chances that actually this may be adopted? But there are like two very, I think, fine points in this whole thing. The first one is the security bond. And the fact that the president decides, is it like 100,000? Is it 1 million? Is it 100 million? And I think that in the current context, like just looking at everything that is happening in the world, in the States at the moment, that will be extremely enticing. I think that's a very, very subtle thing in the whole bill that the president can decide. Like, yeah, this is like you want to do this, guys. Like Booz Allen Hamilton wants to do this, and they can probably do this. I mean, what stops them from doing it is, like you said many times, is that you always have to have like a military behind you to push the button. But otherwise, you do everything. The decision has to be the military. So this changes. This changes that balance, and all it takes is what, $200 million security bond. I think it would be in everyone's interest for this to pass, in the interest of the president, like to collect all those money, to potentially collect the bond money. Maybe there's interest. I don't know. You can leverage the bond. You can sell the bonds in the market. Like, I don't know. You can create a parallel like futures market for these bonds. You can resell the bonds. Like, what is the risk associated with the bond? You can put it in blockchain. I don't know. You can leverage the bonds in the future. So it can be very interesting. And the volume of the bond, in my opinion, is what like really makes a difference. Because if Silas can apply, as our friend Silas can apply for a bond, and if for him the bond is 20K, man, it sounds interesting. It sounds like really interesting. But if the bonds
we'll pass a collection bucket. We'll do like a GoFundMe to get Silas a letter of marque.
I'll chip in. I mean, come on, let's do it. Everyone will chip in, right? So that the volume of the bond, I think it matters a lot. So like some scenarios that I was thinking about and I was running this morning was, as example, like ransomware takedown mission. To hack into a ransomware's gang servers, recover the encryption keys, recover the stolen crypto, bring all that stuff back down, help all the companies.
Bond size, fire CTF, bro.
And the FBI or whoever, maybe they say we have a reward of $10 million for the arrest or information related to these gangs members, right? If they put that is the price of the contract. So whoever recovers the keys gets the $10 million. So I see a lot of companies who might be interested to put, I don't know, like a $1 million to $2 million bond. Because, I mean, even if they wipe or accidentally destroy those servers, I mean, yeah, the collateral damage is pretty small. Maybe nobody will complain except the ransomware guys. So that is one of the scenarios which, in my opinion, it could make sense. It gets more risky when you say, let's say, let's hack into UNC 3886 and get back all the intelligence they collected, or hack into Salt Typhoon and see whatever they collected on the vice president. And there, let's say the contract is part of a bigger deal of $1 billion or $2 billion, the bond will be bigger, $200 million, I don't know.
You're
So
thinking about it more like mercenaries, right? Like bounty hunters, right?
this is what I would envision it. If they wanted to make it work, then this would probably turn into some kind of have gun, have license, willing to travel, willing to hack,
Right.
where whoever the Secret Service, the FBI lists, like for those who are authorized, lists a number of bounties which are available, right? Contracts, cyber. Uh, Operations. And instead of just randomly offering $20 million for information leading to the whatever, they'll be like more
Let people bid
specific,
on
man.
it, right?
More specific, $20 million for the recovery of encryption keys and decrypting all the victims. I think that would be a huge success.
Yeah. Go back to North Korea and get me back all those billions. Like that's
Wow,
a,
just
that's a
imagine,
value.
recover the stolen crypto. And it can be like, sure, we put $10 million on the table, but we'll take 10% of the cryptocurrency recovered, the government. I mean, you'll have to pay tax on whatever you recover. You need to pay tax. Man,
Hey,
it'll be interesting.
We just got Nvidia and AMD to pay a 15% tax. So maybe this is what's coming. Who knows?
Which is why I think the fact that the president can decide, or his representatives can decide the volume of the bond, is what makes it attractive.
It's interesting. It's a conversation we'll be having moving forward. And I think in my conspiracy, Ryan thinks it's inevitable. I think at some point in the next 2 years, we'll see these letters starting to be distributed. We'll start to see it getting fleshed out at some point. It just feels inevitable to me. Am I wrong, Juan?
Not
Wrap
just
up
in
quickly.
the United States. Sorry for speaking over Juan, but this may very well
Please,
be
for
the
once.
case already in other countries like Russia. It may already be that, yeah, guys, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever
Right.
operations
It
you want.
is.
Yeah, I mean, it may already be the case in other countries like that. I think their potential drawbacks come from identifying unique individuals involved in these activities and then getting them arrested in other countries if they ever do visit those countries, or through the Interpol or whatever, for activities which they may be legal in the States, but they may not be very legal in the general frame of things. So I think that
I
can
will
be the
remind
risk.
you guys. I will remind you guys about Mauro talking
Exactly.
about us getting caught up and becoming wartime combatants, playing around in this muddy water. So it's a fascinating place to be. We are almost at the 2-hour mark, and I want to touch on two small things. If we can just do them short, touch on them. I beg you. We had two reports, simultaneous reports, Kaspersky and Microsoft on PipeMagic, which is a ransomware campaign that was actually using a Windows CLFS 0-day and a fake ChatGPT desktop app. I don't know what that is. But Kaspersky put out their report, Microsoft put out their report, and then another company called Byzone put out a report. Costin, you mentioned to me earlier that you've been tracking this since, I believe, in April when Microsoft first patched the vulnerability that was at the center of this. Quickly, what do you know about PipeMagic? What should the audience know about PipeMagic?
Oh, I think I started looking into this in December, actually, last year. When I spotted some interesting mentions. I think that Kaspersky had a SecureList blog in which they mentioned the malware, but they offer no hashes or they offer no samples. However, I was able to locate a sample, so I wrote the Yara rule. Unfortunately, I didn't find any additional samples, just proving how rare this PipeMagic malware was. Now, this is interesting because it's used in the context of this ransomware group who actually leverages 0 days, on Windows CLFS 0 days, which again, they're not your average ransomware group that just uses CobbleStrike and Mimikatz and PSExec and other tools. They do spend time to develop sophisticated malware like this platform. And then they combine it with 0 days to target, again, different companies in the United States, Europe, and so on. What I thought was interesting here was the coordination of these blogs, which dropped on the same day, which is not something that I have seen recently.
Can you
from
help the
Kaspersky and
audience
Microsoft.
understand what happens in the background? What happens in the background when two vendors go on the same day talking about the same thing?
Very good. So how this typically starts is that a company gets in touch with Microsoft and they say, hey, we found this thingy, this 0 day, and can you guys patch it? Here's the code, whatever. And Microsoft typically they say, oh, thank you very much. We don't think this is a 0 day, so we're not going to patch it. And they provide a bit more information. And Microsoft says, oh, yeah, you're right. We're going to patch it. And then they look a bit more into that case. And they
this
say,
is like 4 months of activity he just glossed over.
I just like,
it doesn't, we're not able to do it. It didn't work on our computers.
Feel
maybe
my old
do it
frustrations.
Again.
So what happens is they say, okay, we're gonna patch it, thank you very much. And then like some helpful souls at Microsoft, they do their own research into that, because there's like a lot of brilliant people there who do their own stuff. Like they do their own research and they discover a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they get back to that company and they say, hey, we found some more stuff. And this is like really interesting because it's super rare. I remember a lot of such things, but it's mostly like specific brilliant people there. And they say, here's like the new sample, and then the company looks at their telemetry and they find some more stuff. Sometimes they find the source code for that unique malware and they find more exploits. They may find even like discussions of those exploits being traded. Who knows? I'm theorizing here. I'm definitely haven't seen any such cases before.
Oh, perfect timing to lose.
I was just going to say, Costin is breaking up badly, and then he dropped off completely. Juanito, I don't know if you were working on this PipeMagic thing, but Costin was making the point about like this simultaneous release of information comes after a lot of information sharing and back and forth for sometimes months, over the course of months, sharing telemetry, sharing things, and planning on a fixed day. Okay, we'll go public on Thursday the 21st. We'll go live together so we can kind of get this out. Typical operation here. It's fascinating to me that we know that Microsoft and Kaspersky is going through all this live stuff in the background, even though Kaspersky was kicked out of MAPP. It's considered a quote-unquote sanctioned organization. So it just gives the audience a sense of, despite what you see and hear around, there's a lot of information sharing that still continues to happen in the background.
Let's get real about this one, right? Like, if this is happening, my assumption is it's because of the O day that's being exploited here, right? So like there's a Windows CLFS like CV 2025-29824 that is being exploited in the process of this. So my guess is KL discovers the operation, finds the O day, reports the O day to Microsoft. Microsoft is not going to ignore a 0 day report. Well, they do it regularly.
They shouldn't,
but they shouldn't ignore a 0 day report on the basis of it coming from some company that you don't like. So then they are kind of beholden to KL on this release. And what you end up seeing is also like Bizone, and they mentioned an ESET report, though I didn't see it.
I didn't see that one either.
What I will say on this one that I think is actually interesting is I think I don't want to get too caught up in the geopolitics of it, because I think KL did a pretty good job. Like it's a good report, it's a good analysis, and I think I am woefully ignorant of the intricacies of the ransomware ecosystem, but this looks really well done to me. And like when I look at that backdoor, just reading through the report, if you hadn't told me that it delivered ransomware, I would have thought that I was looking
nation state
at a
operation,
good nation state doing, with a proper backdoor. It has two different modes. It's modular. It allows for plugins. Like there's all these different ways in which I think that this is a surprisingly well implemented thing from the looks of it. And I say that just reading through the reports, right? I haven't taken the time to analyze the malware myself, but that's what caught my eye. It's like you're talking about these guys using, like, before they were using AES CBC, now they're using like RC4 encrypted payloads from these Microsoft help files. You know, you've got they're clearly trying to learn Rust. It's cute. They're getting better at it, right? Like there's a modular approach to it. You have different plugins. They're starting to try like async comms. Like, in many ways, this is a group, or whomever is developing at least the backdoor part of PipeMagic, I think is very interesting. Them having access to 0 days, even more interesting, right? So the only part of this that disappoints me is there's ransomware at the end of it. But I'm very curious who these Storm whatever number people are that are developing and deploying this thing.
This Storm 2460, Storm 2460 span multiple sectors and geography, including the targets of this Storm 2460, including information technology, financial, real estate sectors in the US, Europe, South America, Middle East. So these guys are pretty notorious. Costin, have you been tracking this 2640? Who are these people?
See, I think the Microsoft name for this group called Ransom Exact, they've been around for a couple of years. Well, what is like at least 2022, if I remember correctly. So they're one of the like serious ransomware groups. Honestly speaking, when I first saw this this PipeMagic backdoor the first time, I was thinking like this has to be some unknown APT. This has to be nation state. Until I saw this like "fuck it" comment in it. There's like a "fuck it" label, and then I said, no nation state puts this "fuck it" in it.
Come on,
Unless they want
the
you to
Russians
not
do.
The
People
Russians
do. Yeah.
not often. And also maybe the lack, like at least in this loader, the lack of string encryption. I was thinking, this is an interesting case. This for sure it's interesting, but I was like, that fuck it, it's kind of weird in there.
I had one last question on this, but I don't want it to belabor.
I'm sorry to say I crashed because their storm is happening. Like this, the storm is hitting us, and 5G went down, which killed my internet connection.
I don't know why you're messing with that 5G. Don't you have enough conspiracies in your head not to mess with the 5G? Quickly, what should people do about Pipe Dream? Did we get enough information to go hunting? Did we get IOCs? Did we get Yara? Just a quick wrap up on this. What did we learn, and how can people go hunting for this thing?
Yeah, I think there's enough information to go hunting about this, and I would say that I would assume that people are they've been hunting for some time for this PipeMagic. Like I said, I think I pushed some Yara rules for this in February. I've been looking at it a bit in December last year. So I think people are already looking for it. There's like increased ransom XX activity. I think they have like these activity patterns. Sometimes they disappear and then they come back and drop like 20 or 30 victims. So it's like one of the more unusual groups, but one of the serious ones. So like you get hit by that, there's like very little hope. So maybe they would make an interesting target for one of those ladders of marque, if anyone would be willing to take upon them.
There you go. There's another story, the static Tundra out of Cisco Talos, about a Russian state-sponsored group linked to the FSB, actively exploiting a 7-year-old vulnerability in Cisco iOS software, this smart install feature. And again, targeting unpatched end-of-life devices that probably get no attention, but it continues to cause big problems. Did you get a look at this, Juanito? Quickly, any thoughts on static Tundra? Do they have another name? What do they name? Some other bear somewhere?
Yeah. So this is supposed to be Berserk Bear or Energetic Bear. Which has always been a really interesting cluster, right? Like as the Energetic Bear name suggests, there's some expectation of interest in critical infrastructure in the past. I thought it was super interesting that they were talking about like Simple Knock and some of the sort of exploitation of Cisco iOS devices. Uh, more than anything, because I don't think we've seen a whole lot of reporting about Berserk Bear, Energetic Bear in the recent past, and it doesn't surprise me that it turns out it's because they're hitting, these sorts of appliances. And
This shit never gets fixed, right? Or will
no,
never get fixed.
well, it's not that it doesn't, because with Cisco it does, right? Like Cisco is the higher end. So here's the issue, right? Like we talk about the VPNs and appliances all day long, and now we're lumping Cisco into it because Cisco is being opaque and being shitty about like incident response materials and forensic materials, and basically not inviting the research community to actually help them and not actually sharing the stuff that they're getting out of it. They're trying to follow the same playbook that the other vendors are doing. And frankly, I almost feel silly for not having said this before, but like, why isn't Cisco our recommendation? Like, is there no Cisco appliance like that provides the same functionality than a Fortinet or an Ivanti or whatever? And if there is the price so disproportionately different that we're not recommending it? Because
Is
why
Cisco
isn't
so much better on a security front that,
well?
from say a Fortinet and Ivanti?
So here's the thing: from a security perspective, I get the sense that their Cisco iOS is better. They are responsive about patching these things. They're not some 2-bit fucking company that just pretends they can like ride this one out and not answer people, and that nothing's going to happen. But at the same time, they've taken the big company playbook, instead of engaging the security community in a meaningful way, and instead of helping and essentially making it a thing where, when we see one of these infections, we go, oh, thank God they have Cisco. Great. We can go forensically collect from it. We can reach out to Cisco's team and they're going to help us and get us. Cisco has Talos. And I don't think that Cisco knows to appreciate the gift that it is to have a well-developed, well-respected research team that people actually interact with. Like you have Ashley Shen there, you've got Mitch Neff, you've got Vitor Ventura, you've got a ton of talent that people like appreciate, rely on, and trust. And I get the sense that those people are kept 10 miles away from anything to do with these iOS appliances and whatnot. And instead of engaging the security community, instead of coming to Black Hat and actually hosting a researcher event and like creating community around this issue, they're keeping us at arm's length. They're trying to obfuscate incident response capabilities. They're trying to get people to sign NDAs. They're not essentially enabling this. And that means we're lumping them in the same category as these shit companies, these 2-bit companies. Like we could all be standing Cisco if Cisco just took a different approach to this. And I don't know why this hasn't come up before. And frankly, maybe we're going to go do our research after this. I'll go run a couple of queries and you find out that they just don't sell any VPN appliances that are equivalent to the Ivanti stuff.
We're not fact checking you live. It's okay.
No, but like I'm trying to steelman my own claim here. Maybe they do sell one, but it costs 3 times as much as the other one, which would not be surprising for a company of Cisco's caliber. But I would like to know what the fuck it is, because if they do have this, if it is of a relatively similar price and you're just paying a little bit more, but it's better, and they enabled forensics and they enabled researchers and they were actually watching their own backyard and letting us watch their backyard, we would be advertising Cisco every fucking episode. So like,
shout out to Cisco Talos. This was a very, very good report. Pretty detailed. A lot of useful information, TTPs, targeting, victimology, IOCs. Carsten, you read it?
I did, but I thought it could have a bit more IOCs. I don't know. You seem very optimistic.
Hey, I'll take anything I get. Usually I get nothing. So
usually get not. There's an FBI report, by the way, at the same time, right? Public PSA, a public service.
It's like an IC3 thing telling people to get rid of those devices. The question I had asked Juanito to kick off this conversation, I really want to wrap up this episode, which it still stands in my mind, is if CVE 2018-0171, a 7-year-old vulnerability hasn't been patched. These are unpatched end-of-life devices. Do we expect they'll just sit out there forever, or are we ever going to get to a stage where, or the same way I asked for an Apple malware removal tool, are we getting to a stage where we're going to have to nuke these end-of-life 10-year-old things off the internet that hasn't been patched in 10 years? Where do we stand on?
I don't know, right? Because like I would love to know why they're not patched. And in that, I don't necessarily know that that's on the vendor per se. I mean, when
No,
you
and I'm
say
not blaming the vendor at all.
no,
I'm saying the
I
onus
know,
is on the victim to maintain
I
some
know,
sort of
but well,
semblance of security. Yeah.
I'd love to. So I'd love to know the specifics because, and I say this as a very genuine question. I'm not saying this as like a bullshit, way to like beat these people up. I actually want to understand why, right? Like I would love to know why they haven't patched this thing. And chances are it's just, you buy one of these things and you set it up at like the local DMV, and then the sysadmin gets fired, and you have some other kid who comes in and they just like maintain the computers. And that's what happens at most places. I think, contrary to our beliefs, most places are not agonizing over what to do with the servers and their racks that just give them a little bit of internet. They're
Yeah.
busy trying to make money and survive and do whatever the fuck their actual job is. So if anything, I think that things like this show a kind of failure of the SOAR market. Like, and I'm really curious for a post-mortem as to why the SOAR market has failed as much as it has to make an impact here. Because like you're telling me that for I don't know how many years, the RSA floor was dominated by people claiming to do some kind of like orchestration, automation, response, management of devices and tools and assets. And we're still talking about, well, why didn't Joe in IT patch this device he didn't even know existed on the fucking network? And my question is, well, what do you mean why didn't he patch it? Like, don't they have a SOAR platform integration, whatever the fuck, that's supposed to be doing this for them? And the answer may very well be yes, they do, or they have an MSSP that manages it for them, or no, they don't. But the fact that we're still talking about somebody having to do this tells me that automation and orchestration have failed somewhere. And I am really curious in this age of AI and reconsidering every market category, what the fuck happened to SOAR? Why was it all just lip service and like people were just lying through their teeth? Or did they go to make these integrations and ended up finding serious limitations that were being imposed by vendors and others that meant that they were not able to do this? Because I think that is one of the holy crusades of like enterprise IT management that we should reconsider, we should pay close attention to again. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody should have to go through a list of their shit and go, oh, right, that Cisco thing, have we checked it for vulnerabilities today? What about tomorrow? Did we do it yesterday? Did
Isn't
we do
that
it the day
called a
before?
vulnerability
Did we do
management
it the day
program?
before? Did we do it the day before? Did we do it the day before? Did we do it the day before? Right? Like it's just that those are machine problems. Anytime human beings are being required to solve machine problems, we've fucked up.
Yeah, but we're not talking about mom and pop shops here. According to the reporting here, the targets include telecommunications, higher education, manufacturing sectors across North America, Europe, victims selected based on their strategic interest to the Russian government. And worse, like this is just sitting there for others as well to pop on.
Yeah.
You were talking about like, well, should we be checking today or yesterday or yeah, you should. I mean, isn't this part of vulnerability management?
No. Look, I think if what we mean by checking is somebody in the company sat down in front of a dashboard or is responsive to a pager and saw a line that said new patch released for the Cisco whatever, according to your policy, it's being applied tonight at 2:00 in the morning, which is the lowest usage in your network.
In 7 years, you don't have a scanner to tell you that this CVE isn't.
I'm not talking about that particular situation. Let's talk about the ideal, because I think it's important to discuss the ideal, because that at least gives us a standard to push people towards. When you go beat up the edge, the normal mediocre case. Like, God, you're talking about like higher education. Higher education means some fucking, like, it can mean a community college down the fucking street.
Or a
Like
telco.
higher, or it's, well, telcos are the ones that I obviously put at a whole, like, cut above in a whole different space, assuming it's a big telco. But look, when
You
you talk
see where
about
you're going?
dude, when you talk about manufacturing, when you talk about even critical infrastructure, usually we're talking about places that are
True,
not
small
that
shops. Yeah,
tech savvy. And more than that, I just want us to stop talking about the IT people as if they failed to do something when they paid a vendor something that didn't really manage much of this problem. And the people who are paying the most money for that vendor's version of whatever are still not getting a solution to the problem. So I think we need to have a broader discussion. We need to actually settle on what does it look like to do this well? And when that's actually available, applicable, affordable, and effective, then we can go back down to these smaller shops and be like, what the fuck, guys? You should have just paid for Cisco's SOAR package. It costs, I don't know, $3,000 a year, and they keep your shit managed. Anyone can afford whatever, right? Like, then we can have that conversation, because it's not like the whole company, whatever this place is, it's, if they have some Cisco Blade server somewhere, then that means they probably have like 100 of them, or they might have like 15 different devices, or they have a regional office and then a bunch of connected devices everywhere. So, like, you know, what are we talking about when it comes to the management of these things?
we will talk about this forever because the Black Lotus Labs guys will continue to ship reports on botnets filled with these end-of-life devices, unpatched end-of-life things that will sit there forever. I think at some point we got to start pushing some sort of code to nuke these things off the internet and force people to buy new ones. I don't know. They go buy new TP-Link ones.
Breaker bot. Break them, bro.
Kostinsky, finish the show. What are your shout-outs this week?
Ooh, you caught me unprepared because I was still thinking about this story with static Tundra, not with the storm, with the static. And I was thinking like, what's missing? Perhaps like I'm nitpicking on things, but I was just wondering. Like, I haven't heard this berserk bear or like energetic bear name in a while. And I was wondering, how do you link these new operations back to that actor? How do you know it's still the energetic bear? Like, I mean, not contesting any attribution, just wondering, you know, how well can you say that an actor that was active in 2014, maybe even before that, 2012, 2011, it's still the same as it is today, and probably we can talk about this issue forever.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the sinful knock stuff. I don't know.
But would they still
FBI
use it?
Advisory too? Like, that's the thing that I actually side with you on this one, Kostin, in that like pulling out a name of a threat group like this that's so far in the rear view mirror without any greater explanation, but also like what set me off a little bit was seeing FSB Center 16 unit. You're like, oof, okay, this is CrowdStrike style attribution, where you're willing to go talk about like an agency in particular related to a threat cluster, which you weren't even that sure of in the first place 5 years ago. But to say that today without any clear lineage or connective tissue, yeah, I'm with you. Like, this is kind of, that part doesn't quite sit right?
I think the attribution is mostly linked to this FBI report. So it's more around the lines like, hey, there's someone doing this exploitation, which FBI thinks it's that stuff. So we think that because FBI thinks it's that stuff, we think it's that stuff. So would be, I don't know, probably like I worry too much about pointless issues and pointless problems. But what immediately, you know, it kind of tickled me, if you want, was that Sophacy was doing this stuff, like the kind of things that we are talking about here. They were doing this 2014, and they were doing exactly the way it is described in this article. So there's like maybe this question at the very bottom of my mind: can this be sophisy and not something else? I don't know. Can it be those guys, or did they change jobs? Or
Does it matter? Why does it matter so
Oh,
much?
absolutely matters.
To me, it matters. I think it matters to a lot of people. Because like what I
If I'm
would
a
do
defender,
now,
I want to go fix my shit. I don't
Yeah,
care
fix
if
your
it's some
shit, but, like,
berserker.
Go patch your
as a
shit, bro.
forward-looking defender, then you now go back to your drawing table or board, and you start hunting for sinful knock, right? That's what you do. So I'll go back and I'll start hunting for new sinful knock stuff, which is a name I haven't heard mentioned since what,
Yeah.
2016. So that's why it matters, because then like a dozen or 2,000 people, or maybe 50 people, will now go back to their works and start hunting for this old stuff just to see if it's active again. Which also raises the question, by the way, what are the sophisy guys doing nowadays about all this router exploitation? And the other question, which to me it was kind of unanswered by the FBI PSA public service announcement and this article, was okay, so they hack these routers, what do they do next? Like, what is the next level of activity? Like they say reconnaissance, very good, reconnaissance, and what follows that reconnaissance? Is it like a new berserk bear malware? Is it like new implants? What's next? I think that
Yeah.
that is missing
If the
from the
report
picture.
is to be believed, it's almost like they seem to suggest that like they're setting up accesses to these edge devices and then just leaving them there. And you know, I'm not saying that's the case, right? Like, but that's what it seems to suggest. In which case, if you don't have much in by way of like what's in these boxes, how are you doing a lot of the attribution? Is it literally just like the infrastructure, right? Like if there's an FBI thing related to this, like did the FBI tell you that it's Berserk Bear? Because if that's the case, like we might as well just throw that out completely, right? Yeah, I think you're right to be not necessarily skeptical as much as like just curious, right? Like how did
Yes, exactly.
how did you we respect Talos.
No,
Talos knows her
absolutely.
shit.
No,
How
just
did you come to this conclusion, right?
it's fantastic. I mean, in 2025, to read a blog and to read something like let me quote: additional information, including a full technical write-up, can be found in a 2015 blog published by Mandiant, with additional details from a 2015 Cisco blog. This is like 10 years ago. So it's like paleontology, if you want. And to me, this
Yeah.
is always fascinating. I mean, again, in a positive way, to see an actor active again, and then dig this story from 10 years ago, bring it back to the surface because it's happening. I think it's fascinating.
Dude, I asked you to give shout-outs, not 15
Ooh, I
more
forgot.
minutes.
I forgot.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that sneaks
15
in a
fucking
story.
minutes later, I'm trying to close the show.
Tosin, can you do a shout out to the guy that got arrested for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline? Because I think that would be a great shout out.
Why would I shout out to him? I don't know. Like,
I'm just saying, like, since we're sneaking in stories this way, I think that would be a good one to.
Let me sneak in one. Shout out to the judge who threw the book at this scattered spider asshole and gave him 10 years. Got 10 years in prison, and this guy is like a music leaker basically that did the social engineering on the SIM swapping for these DECOM assholes. But yesterday, the Florida man was sentenced to 120 months in prison along with 13 million in restitution. Shout out to law enforcement throwing the book at him and hopefully setting a precedent and an example for others. Don't know if it
was it a physical book throw, or was it like a?
Well, I hope it was. It should have been
physical throwing the book, right?
No. It's a phrase we use here when you throw the legal book at someone.
The story itself is like reading the story is great. Like the dude's like tweeting out like cat memes as he's getting his his sentencing.
King
You're
Bob.
like, Jesus, bro.
King Bob is going away for a long time. The fascinating thing was during this case, like during the sentencing case, the court system, including the judge, was hacked by one of these scattered spider people who was partly caught up in it. So it's just like these kids have no care in the world.
Don't use the term scatter spider. It's
you're right.
There is
it's
potential.
the it's star fraud, but Yeah.
there is potential in physically throwing the book during
Yeah.
sentencing, I think. It
Next
reminds
time.
me of
The guy
my
throwing the
student
shoe.
years when we had like a teacher who was throwing chalk at the students who were sleeping. Like, of course,
Ah, yeah.
everyone was tired. They played Doom the night before, Doom 2,
Teacher,
Quake.
that chalk
Doom
hits you on your
And
2.
forehead.
they would throw the chalk and like amazing precision, like hit you in the head and leave like a white mark right here
Yeah.
for those like sleeping students in electrotechnics. But anyway, shout outs. I wanted to give like some special shout outs because there was a cool story, like a drama, and we all love dramas in the Magic Money community. Like this group called Cubic, who claimed a 51% attack on the Monero infrastructure. And there was like a lot of drama because someone who controls 51% of blockchain hash rate for proof of work blockchains can do all sorts of bad stuff. And there was drama in the sense that people don't believe there was really a 51% attack, and everyone was encouraging people to mine Monero, like run the Monero mining on your laptop, on your dishwasher, on your phone, on your laptops and everything. So I thought it was like an amazing mobilization of this Magic Money Monero community to survive and to resist this hostile takeover by the Cubic clan. So I thought that was cool. So if
Did we have any clarity on whether they actually
deployed
hit this
attack?
51%? Yeah.
I don't think they did. No, like
Okay.
in all the signs kind of suggest that they did hit something like 30%, which still allows for attacks called block reorganization, in which things like some, let's say, unpleasant things can happen, like transactions can be delayed, take longer, like your transactions can be reorganized in later blocks. So bad things can happen, and there were discarded blocks, I think, of a higher rate than usual happening. Again, don't fact check me on that, but I thought that they didn't achieve the 51% attack. Nevertheless, they did achieve like something in the range of 30% probably. And when they claim, it was interesting because all the mining pools, the Monero mining pools, they publicly show the mining rate. So when they claim this attack, the Cubic people hid or disabled the all the counters for their mining pool, so you couldn't actually see what their speed is actually. So to me, it feels a bit fishy, if you ask me.
That's one of the shout outs that I still don't understand.
Shout out to the people who mined Monero on their watches to stop the Cubic committee.
Shout out to, hey, we're heading into conference season. We're a month away from LABScon, like we mentioned. There's also a new conference coming up in October 28th in Brussels, Belgium, that I wanted to call attention to. It's called State of Statecraft, stateofstatecraft.com. The CFP is open. It's a threat intelligence conference deliberately set up in Europe, being run by some friends of ours who we have high hopes for that one as well. VB is in Berlin in a few months as well. I mean, I think VB is in October as well. So the European circuit will be hot. And then Juanito, you're still planning to go out to this Offensive AI Con, Dreadnode's conference?
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm actually still waiting on a submission to see, but I see that they announced keynotes. So what did we see? We saw some of our friends are keynoting Offensive AI Con. I'm actually pretty excited for that one. I think that's one of the few.
The three
AI
names they announced yesterday was
right?
Rob Joyce, Dave Vitale, and Perry Adams. We're going to do the day 2 keynote discussion there. So three pretty big names. But what are you expecting out of this Offensive AI Con? What's the focus of the conference?
I think so. The name, I think the name is kind of cursed it a little bit in the sense of like offensive AI. I think gives a lot of folks an expectation that like from the security side, it's only offensive focused. I actually see it being a lot more broadly about like security and AI, and that has me excited because I don't see a whole lot of venues from the security side expressly embracing AI. So what you tend to get from the AI side talking about security tends to be the kind of bullshit that we make fun of, or like, concerns that are just not really concerns. So I'm actually really excited for this one. I'm really curious to see when the agenda drops, and hopefully we get some broader discussions, because this is just a necessity, right? Like every industry is going to have to figure out what AI can do for them, can't do for them, will do for them, should do for them. And that's not a simple discussion, but it's also not a discussion that should be had by AI people in their understanding of what the medical sector needs, what the cybersecurity sector needs, whatever. That's never going to work well. You need the domain experts to actually be the ones embracing this thing and saying what we actually need it to do is X, Y, and Z. So anything that advances that conversation, I'm extremely interested in.
Fantastic. Best of luck to those guys doing that conference. Best of luck to us trying to get through the last days of LABScon and getting this show on the road.
The agenda's out, man. The people gotta hit up. So labscon.io/speakers.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of interesting talks, man. There's a lot of good, and there's still a few surprises. We'll pull them out as kind of go along.
PLP Red talks, huh?
Well, there's
PLP Red.
It's FOMO-con. There's a few things that are just happening on the ground, and like either you're there or not, but it's sold out. So it is what it is. Actually, Ryan, one of the shout outs I definitely want to make, which is kind of hilarious, is a shout out to all the people that have written me in the past couple of days. I have maybe 200 different messages on Signal, DMs, or whatever, asking if my LinkedIn profile is real.
Oh, yes.
It is.
It's real, right?
So it's kind of funny. I made it to attend some Dreadnought event that they were like hosting on LinkedIn, and I wanted to watch the thing, and then I just left it there, and people were like bugging me about it being fake.
There are two of them there.
Well, now I got it merged. It's like what? But like, I didn't realize I was the last asshole to hold out and not join LinkedIn.
I've been promoting the show on LinkedIn, and I can't tag you. I can only tag Costin because you're not there.
People act like I'm a fucking castaway that suddenly was like rediscovered or found, like brought back to civilization. It's also kind of a weird, grim place, but I'm trying to get my bearings.
So it is real.
It is real. I was starting to add people, and apparently there's a limit how many people you can add. I don't understand this Microsoft trying to make a social network. I'm also still at Sentinel-1. People who think that I'm looking for a job all of a sudden, I'm not. Like, I'm happy.
You need to put that open to work thing around your
picture. No, fuck that. Absolutely not. But I think this is more a statement on how bad Twitter's gotten, and how bad all the other social network platforms are, that I'm just like, yeah, fuck it. Let's check out this LinkedIn shit. So
That's
yeah,
a great
do you have
place
a
to end
Facebook
it.
profile, Juan?
No.
Okay,
I'm
so
not that desperate.
There's still options, right?
Yeah, there's still yeah. Fuck that. We're not doing that.
Great place to end it. Everyone go find Juanito on LinkedIn and add him
my
so
God.
he doesn't hit the limits.
And he's
I already
fine.
did. That's fine.
He is fine.
We're at 2.5 hours.
fine.
I can't believe in the most
Jax is
unprepared episode we got 2.5 hours of chit chat. So that's about all you can get from us. Thank you very
4-hour
much.
episode, bro.
Catch you again next week.
Bye.